Chapter 4871. According to Yi Xian's deductions, there was at least an 80% chance that the fusion would be completed successfully. After all, the mantis-winged combat beasts would have a massive body of 50 million kilometers after the first decomposition. After the fusion, the war Karas could completely reside in the chest cavity of the mantis-winged combat beasts, becoming an existence similar to its kinetic heart. Once the fusion was successful, the mantis-winged combat beasts would not only possess their original offensive abilities when needed in future battles, but they would also be able to use the war Kara's special attacks. As such, their overall combat strength would definitely soar again. If there were no accidents, the level 8 Desolate Supremacy after the first decomposition would once again return to the peak of the Desolate Supremacy level, at the Great Circle of Desolate Supremacy level 9. And if that was the case, once the 4 mantis-winged combat beasts that had returned to Desolate Supremacy after fusing with the 4 great clans were allowed to continue fusing, the resulting mantis-winged beasts that were more than 200 million kilometers in size would have an 80% chance of stepping into the true Heavenly Dao realm, just like the fusion of D-Air, the Claw Elephant combat beasts, and the Star Python combat beasts. Of course, such an ultimate fusion was not something Yi Xian would easily carry out. In other words, once the war Kara successfully fused into the bodies of the 4 mantis-winged combat beasts, Yi Xian's electronic avatars would basically appear in the form of the 4 mantis-winged combat beasts that had completed the first decomposition. He did not wish to attract the primeval heaven's eye again. Even if the final fusion was carried out, Yi Xian would definitely not do it in the void of the primordial wilderness fragment. At the very least, he had to return to the primordial wilderness before attempting it. That was the primordial wilderness, an existence of a higher level than the primordial wilderness. Therefore, the will of the primeval heavens I was unable to influence the will of the primordial wilderness. In other words, if he were to break through to the heavenly Dao realm there, even the primeval heavens I would not be able to forcefully suppress him. At most they would jump out to stop him. But if the fusion was successful, everyone would be at the heavenly Dao realm. At most they would just have to fight. Phew! Swish! 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 Yi Xian's eyes flashed with a cold light after he deduced everything in his mind. He immediately waved his hand. As he waved his hand, there were countless weak light rays accompanied by the sound of breaking through the air. As soon as these light rays appeared, they expanded in the wind. In the blink of an eye, they covered a large area of the void in the cave star. Each ray of light was a mantis-winged battle beast in its basic form. They were all at the Immortal Emperor realm, and there were more than 40 million of them in total. As soon as the 40 million mantis-winged beasts were summoned, Yi Xian immediately gave the order. To be more precise, it was just a simple thought in his mind. This was because the electronic doppelganger was himself, and these 40 million mantis-winged war beasts were all his electronic doppelgangers. Whatever Yi Xian wanted them to do, it was as natural as it could be. It was completely different from the way D-Air used his own electronic consciousness to give orders to his clansmen. It was like there was a layer of paper between them, but Yi Xian did not have that. Soon with his thought, the 40 million mantis-winged warbeasts moved quickly in the void and were divided into 4 camps. Before this, there were already 4 huge battle garrisons floating in the void. Now the 40 million mantis-winged battle beasts, each of which was over 10 million mantis-winged battle beasts, surrounded the 4 battle garrisons in the middle. Around each of the battle garrisons, there were more than 10 million mantis-winged battle beasts. The 4 major kinetic energy clans within the 4 battle garrisons had long awakened. They were the Void Soldier Ladle clan, the Weeping Soul Beast clan, the Slime clan, and the Blood Mosquito clan. Each of the 4 major kinetic energy clans had a population of 10 million. Now, they were stationed in the 1,000 beehive nodes of the 4 battle garrisons. Each node had 10,000 of them. Among them, the strongest cultivators of the 4 major kinetic energy clans had reached the remote antiquity realm. There were many of them, more than 100 of them. Each of them was in charge of 10 beehive nodes. These 4 major kinetic energy clans had already received Yi Xian's orders and were ready to merge with the 10 million mantis-winged warbeasts around the 4 battle garrisons. Swish, swish, rumble, crack, 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 crack. In the next moment, with Yi Xian's thought, the merging of the 4 major camps was fully carried out. When D-Air was in charge of merging the 200 million feet tall mantis-winged warbeasts, It took him 7 times to complete the merging. Now that Yi Xian had divided the 200 million feet tall mantis-winged warbeasts into 4 major camps and merged them, it was equivalent to D'Air's 6 times of merging. But in fact, now that it was in Yi Xian's hands, it was not so troublesome at all. Each of the 4 major camps had a battle garrison and more than 10 million thousand feet tall mantis-winged warbeasts surrounding the battle garrisons. Now that he had given the order to merge them, all of them moved and completed the merging in just one go. The whole process took less than 10 breaths of time. If D'Air saw this scene, he would probably beat his chest and stamp his feet. Within 10 breaths of time, the merging was completed quickly. At this time, when he turned his head to look, he could no longer see the 4 battle garrisons in front of him, nor was there a single 1,000 feet tall mantis-winged warbeast. There were only 4 giant mantis-winged warbeasts that were 50 million miles in size. Their basic forms were exactly the same. They stood on their hind legs and had blade-like mantis wings. There was only a slight difference. And this slight difference was obviously due to the integration of the 4 different war-class weapons. Now, the 4 battle garrisons were respectively located in the chests of the 4 mantis-winged warbeasts. It was also because of their merging that the 4 mantis-winged warbeasts had different patterns on their chests, like emblems. From left to right, the emblems on the chests of the 4 mantis-winged warbeasts were a purple gold void ladle, a ferocious one-horned weeping soul beast's head, a gray slime, and a blood-red blood mosquito beast. These 4 emblems were clearly characteristics of the 4 major kinetic races of the 4 battle garrisons. In the future, they would be the only mark to distinguish the 4 mantis-winged warbeasts. As for cultivation strength, the previous 4 mantis-winged warbeasts were all 8th order primordial supreme. But now, after fusing one of the battle garrisons into each of them, their cultivation strength had indeed risen once again, returning to the perfected 9th order primordial supreme. In other words, they were at the half-step heavenly Tao realm. In other words, the present magic hall had an additional 4 peak desolate supremacies at the half-step heavenly Tao realm. Including Yi Xian himself, there were a total of 5. If one were to include the 3 Blood Sea avatars condensed from the Blood Sea Mystic Art avatar. Now, in the present magic hall, there were a total of 7 peak half-step heavenly Tao realm combat forces. With this in mind, Yi Xian's heart immediately stirred. A glint flashed in his eyes as he swept his gaze across the 4 mantis-winged warbeasts. From his mouth he muttered dreamily. First, there were the 8 great guardian deities. Now, all of you are the 4 heavenly kings of my magic hall. Heavenly King of the Void, Heavenly King of Withering Soul, Heavenly King of Time, and Heavenly King of Blood Mosquito. Chapter 4872. With the birth of Heavenly King Void, Heavenly King Crying Soul, Heavenly King Flowing Time, as well as Heavenly King Blood Mosquito, the magic hall now had 4 peak half-step Heavenly Tao realm desolate supremacies. Including Yi Xian himself, there were a total of 5. If the 3 Blood Sea avatars condensed from the Blood Sea Mystic Technique avatar were included, the present magic hall had a total of 7 peak half-step Heavenly Tao realm desolate supremacies. In addition, the Black Robe desolate supremacy, the Empyrean Seal Lightning Spirit, and the 7 Gorgeous Cultivators were all first-stage desolate supremacies that had just entered the realm. In addition to them, the present magic hall's peak combat strength was equivalent to 7 half-step Heavenly Tao realm desolate supremacies and 9 first-stage desolate supremacies. This number was in no way weaker than the Heavenly Tao Union. Even the Heaven's Legacy race was probably on par with them. With these thoughts flashing through his mind, Yi Xian immediately revealed a knowing smile. However, he did not plan on exposing the 4 heavenly kings from the outside. The magic hall had only gained a mantis-winged behemoth that was more than 100 million kilometers in size. Its cultivation level had reached the perfected 9th stage of the supreme primordial realm, which was equivalent to a half-step heavenly Tao realm. They definitely did not expect that after the mantis-winged behemoth was disassembled and fused with the 4 battle garrisons, it would transform into 4 terrifying half-step heavenly Tao realm existences. Furthermore, it was crowned by Yi Xian as the magic hall's 4 heavenly kings. Phew! Swoosh! Swoosh! With a wave of his hand, the 4 heavenly kings were stored away by Yi Xian. They were sent directly into the farmer god treasure cauldron and lay dormant in the cauldron's space. Now that he was presiding over the magic hall, there was naturally no need for them to come out. But in the future, If Yixian were to temporarily leave the forbidden land of the rising sun, he would leave the 4 heavenly kings behind. At least half of them would be left behind, with them presiding over the magic hall. Even if the Heavenly Tao Union or the Heaven's Legacy race were to send a Supreme Primordial to launch a sneak attack, it would ensure that nothing would happen. Currently, there are already 60 level 29 Desolate Venerable pellets. It should be enough, so there's no need to refine more. After putting the 4 heavenly kings into the Shenong treasured cauldron, Yixian fell into deep thought. A dark light flashed through his eyes from time to time as he muttered in a dreamy voice. The perfect pill formula for the level 30 Heavenly Tao treasure pill has already been fully deduced twice. There shouldn't be any flaws or mistakes. However, I have only collected 3 pieces of the Desolate Sovereign's blood essence that are used to refine the level 30 Heavenly Path treasure pill. To refine a level 30 Heavenly Tao treasure pill, other than some special ingredients, just the Desolate Supremacy blood essence alone requires at least 5 pieces. That is to say, for the next mission, I should think of a way to collect some Desolate Supremacy blood essence. Even if the other special ingredients for the perfect pill formula have yet to be found, the Desolate Supremacy blood essence is one of the essential ingredients. I need at least 5 of them. No matter what, I should first meet this requirement. The Desolate Supremacy blood essence was refined from the Desolate Supremacy's blood essence after his body exploded. Therefore, in order to obtain the Desolate Supremacy blood essence, one had to kill the Desolate Supremacy. Currently, Yixian could already condense 3 Bloodseed doppelgangers. His battle strength had already reached the peak of the 9th stage of the Desolate Supremacy. Together with the 4 heavenly kings, he had the battle strength of 7 peak Desolate Supremacies. Although it was not easy to kill the Desolate Supremacy with 7 peak Desolate Supremacies, it should not be a problem. Apart from the Demon Hall, only the Tianji clan and the Heavenly Tao Alliance had supreme masters of the primordial era in the void fragment of the Untainted Land. He first excluded the Tianji clan. After all, the Tianji clan were electronic lifeforms. Their bodies were made of various materials. They did not have a physical body, so killing them would be a waste of time. As such, his only target was the Heavenly Law Alliance. In the Heavenly Law Alliance, there were a total of 16 Desolate Supremacies. The Star Alliance included the 9-headed Blood Wyrm, the Azure Rock, the Bloodthirsty War Lion, the Scarlet Unicorn, and the 9 Phantom Demon Crocodile. The 10,000 Races Alliance included the 4 Desolate Supremacies from the Hell Ant Clan, the Space Rat Clan, the Giant Ferocious Clan, and the Evil Slime Clan. These 9 existences were all qualified hunting targets. In addition, the Heavenly Law Alliance had 7 Desolate Supremacies, D-Air, and 6 Desolate Supremacies from the Everlasting Dynasty, the Skyju Palace, and the Temple of Glory. Each of the 3 factions had 2 Desolate Supremacies. D-Air was naturally excluded. He was also an electronic life form. Killing him would be a waste of time. Among the remaining 6 Desolate Supremacies, the 4 from the Everlasting Dynasty and the Skyju Palace were definitely humans. Although they were also flesh and blood, they did not have the bloodline of the ferocious beasts. They did not have the blood essence of the ferocious beasts. Killing them would not be of much use. As for the other 2 from the Temple of Glory, they could have been humans or ferals of the celestial race, but there was no telling just yet. After all, they had never shown their faces since they had arrived at this primeval realm fragment. If that was the case, then Yixian would only be able to lock onto 9 targets. They were the 9-headed Blood Wyrm, the Azure Rock, the Bloodthirsty War Lion, the Scarlet Unicorn, and the 9 Phantom Demon Crocodile from the Star Alliance. There were also the 4 Desolate Supremacies from the Infernal Ant Tribe, the Space Rat Tribe, the Giant Ferocious Tribe, and the Evil Slime Tribe. It seems that I have to take some time to visit the Star Alliance and the Alliance of Glory soon. Thinking of this, a cold light flashed in his eyes. He mumbled in a dreamy voice. However, the Star Alliance and the Alliance of Glory are now part of the Heavenly Law Alliance. They are on the same side as the Human Federation. Each of the 3 forces has a directional wormhole in the depths of their respective star areas. As long as any one of the 3 forces is in trouble, the regular forces of the other 2 forces will be able to arrive at the rescue through the directional wormhole in the star area as soon as possible. Needless to say, the high-level battle force will be there. It seems that even if we want to attack the Star Alliance and the Alliance of Glory, we must have a thorough plan and preparation before we officially start the operation. Otherwise, once the news is leaked, the supreme ancients of the other two factions will rush to our aid. I'm afraid that it will directly lead to the failure of the hunt. It will be difficult to carry out the same plan in the future. Speaking of this, Yixian subconsciously frowned. He fell silent and fell into deep thought. At the same time, in the universe void hundreds of billions of miles away from the forbidden land of the rising sun. Whoosh! A faint sound of breaking through the void rang out. A ray of light shot out from the void at an extremely fast speed. Looking at the direction that it was heading, it was surprisingly heading towards the forbidden land of the rising sun, where the magic hall was located. And the direction that this ray of light was heading towards was hundreds of billions of miles away from the Human Federation. It was the vast star system that was occupied by the Tianji clan. The speed of this ray of light was very fast, and it faintly revealed the aura of a desolate venerable. There was no doubt that this was a desolate venerable expert from the Tianji clan. It was very likely that this was a doppelganger of the clan leader D. If this was the case, judging from the direction of the light beam, which was heading toward the rising sun forbidden land, the purpose of DE sending out an avatar this time was really a little interesting. Chapter 4873. Outside the star sector where the rising sun forbidden land was located. Boom! Rumble! Roar! In the void, roars could be heard from time to time. Occasionally, the roars of ferocious beasts could be heard. As far as the eye could see, there were fleets, battleships, and teams made up purely of ferocious beasts wandering back and forth in the void. These teams were just the daily patrol teams under the command of the Magic Hall. The rising sun forbidden land was too vast. Even though there were 100 million battleships, and ferocious beasts patrolling the void 100 million miles away from the star sector, the density was very low. Usually a patrol team would take a long time to pass by. A second patrol team would pass by at the same location. At this moment, at the border of the patrol circle 100 million miles away from the rising sun forbidden land, in the northern region, there was a team of ferocious beasts wandering by. The entire patrol team was made up of ferocious beasts, and there were only 10 of them in total. This was just the most basic team of ferocious beasts. The leading ferocious beasts did not have a very strong cultivation. They were only at the ordinary immortal realm. Currently, the Magic Hall did not dare to say that it was the most powerful force in the void fragment of the Chaos world, but it was not far from it. The only forces that could contend with it were the Heavenly Law Alliance and the Heavenly Legacy Clan. The Heavenly Legacy Clan had already set their eyes on the Heavenly Law Alliance, so they did not have the time to care about the Magic Hall. As for the Heavenly Law Alliance, they had just suffered a defeat here not long ago. The Machinery Clan under D-Air had suffered heavy losses, and they fled in panic like stray dogs. Therefore, the Magic Hall fleets and ferocious beasts that were patrolling outside the star sector were not very vigilant. They were obviously a little lazy and dispirited. In the distance, behind an abandoned star, there was a huge creature hibernating. This was a mirage worm that was more than 10,000 feet long. It looked similar to the Void Soldier ladle, but it was completely black and had more tentacles. It looked more ferocious. In fact, this mirage worm was just one of Di's mechanical doppelgangers. Back then, in that mysterious void, Di had taken a fancy to this mirage worm among the remains of a large number of primordial creatures in the void. Then, he had spent a lot of energy, using its body as a foundation to carry out various modifications. On the surface, it looked like a living sea serpent worm, but in fact, the inside of this sea serpent worm had been greatly modified so that Di's electronic consciousness could enter it. Now, a wisp of Di's electronic consciousness had entered the body of the mirage worm, so its essence was actually just a doppelganger of Di. The reason why Di chose it as one of the many doppelgangers was that he fancied the bloodline of the mirage worm. The mirage worm was no longer seen in the current starry sky. It was a rare insect race that existed in the early stage of the Untainted Era. It was a special species. It had a powerful illusion ability. Even some of the untainted ancient beasts with special bloodlines would be affected by its bloodline if they were caught off guard. He was bewildered, and he didn't even know that he was in an illusion. There were no traces to follow. As a doppelganger of Di, even if it was just one of his many doppelgangers, the cultivation strength of this mirage worm was obviously not weak. In fact, it was very powerful. Not only had it entered the primordial master realm, But it was also far from an ordinary primordial master. It was a desolate master in the late stage of the seventh realm. After all, the bloodline of the mirage worm was special and extremely rare. It was rare to get a mirage worm, and it took a lot of effort to modify it. If its cultivation strength was too weak, it would be too wasteful. Therefore, it was understandable that Dee had poured a lot of resources into this mirage worm. As a desolate master in the late stage of the seventh realm, it naturally had no problem facing the ordinary experts patrolling the edge of the rising sun forbidden land. In addition, with the special ability of the mirage worm's bloodline, it was now dormant on an abandoned star thousands of miles away. Behind Shen there was no hiding at all. It just restrained its breath, but still no patrol team could find it. Even if the power of the divine senses or the radio waves of the battleship swept over, this place was empty. The mirage worm that was casually staying in the void seemed to not exist at all. No matter how the divine senses swept over or in front of it, they couldn't see it. Soon, the group of ferocious beasts wandering in front gradually approached, and the distance was already close to millions of miles. Whoosh! At this moment, the mirage worm that had been dormant behind the abandoned star moved. Its huge body was like a ray of light, and it rushed out at an extremely fast speed. At this moment its breath was diffused. The ferocious beasts in front and right caught a trace of abnormality and subconsciously turned their heads to look. But almost in the next moment, their figures abruptly stopped in the void, and they were motionless. The light in their eyes became blurred, revealing a sense of emptiness and confusion. It was as if they had lost their minds and fallen into some kind of psychedelic state. This was one of the innate abilities of the mirage worm's bloodline. Whoosh! As the 10 ferocious beasts in this team were all confused, the mirage worm shot out at an extremely fast speed, and in the blink of an eye, it had arrived in front of them. It did not pay attention to the other 9 ferocious beasts in the team. It rushed directly to the leader of the ferocious beasts. An imperceptible low buzzing sound sounded. From the tentacles on the back of the mirage worm, a gray and black light shot out. After touching the body of the immortal realm ferocious beast's leader, it instantly turned into a hazy gray and black light. It shrouded its entire body. It only lasted for a second, and the gray and black light shield that shrouded the entire body of the ferocious beast's leader suddenly shrank rapidly, turning into a point like a firefly. Its speed was faster than before. In the blink of an eye, it shot into the glabella of the mirage worm and disappeared. Almost in the next moment, as the tentacles on the back of the sea serpent insect swayed, a second low buzzing sound was heard. It was almost imperceptible. A light shield appeared from its body and spread out, covering the entire body of the sea serpent insect. Immediately afterward, the gray and black light shield flashed and disappeared instantly, once again entering the body of the mirage worm. The whole process was still very fast, less than a second, and in this short period of time, the entire body of the mirage worm that was tens of thousands of feet long had undergone earth-shattering changes. It was no longer a mirage worm, but a green ape with a full body of green fur. It stood on its hind legs, and its body was tens of thousands of feet long. The aura of its body had also become that of an ordinary immortal realm expert. Even the aura of its divine soul had completely become that of a green ape, without the slightest aura of the mirage worm. Even if a supreme existence whose cultivation had reached the desolate venerable realm used his divine sense to investigate, he would absolutely not be able to find any abnormalities. This was another innate ability of the mirage worm's bloodline. It could transform into the prey it had captured at will. It was perfect in both form and spirit, and it was much more realistic than the so-called copy. There was simply no flaw at all. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 4874. Wang. A low humming sound was heard, and the other 9 ferocious beasts were slightly shaken. The confusion in their eyes disappeared, and they turned around to look at their surroundings. Very quickly, they retracted their gazes. They didn't feel anything strange at all. In just a few breaths, Dee had used this mirage bug body to perfectly blend into the magic hall. Now, he had become the leader of a patrol team in the magic hall's ferocious beasts army. Howl! Through the memory of the leader of the ferocious beasts that had just been swallowed, Dee instantly had a certain understanding of the magic hall. At the same time, he also realized that the patrol time of his patrol team had just ended. After a light roar, Green Ape's body shook, and he turned to the left and shot toward the rising sun forbidden land. The 9 ferocious beasts behind him followed closely, but they still didn't notice anything strange. After a short while, this team of ferocious beasts entered the rising sun forbidden land. Of course, at the same time, other teams of ferocious beasts, battleships also retreated. As the patrol team retreated, other teams rushed out from the forbidden land of the rising sun one after another to take over the patrol duty. Everything was in order, and there was no difference from before. No one noticed or realized that a spy had sneaked into this patrol team, and it was a mechanical mirage bug body of D, the leader of the Tianji clan. After returning to the rising sun forbidden land, Green Ape's team and the other ferocious beasts all shot toward a star. This star belonged to the nomadic army, and the one in charge of this star was one of the higher-ups of the nomadic army, Black Wind Tiger. Black Wind Tiger had always been with Green Ox, Yulinglong, Long Xiao, Gong Jun, Howling Moon Mastiff, Three-Clawed Flood Dragon, Long Shantang, and the others. He could be considered one of the higher-ups who had joined the nomadic army very early on. When he returned to the nomadic army, he was only an undying emperor. However, over the past few years, he had obtained a large amount of purple gold medicines, 9-colored godly medicines, and various level pills that could be used to break through the bottleneck of a higher realm. And with his daily training, Black Wind Tiger's power had skyrocketed. First, he had broken through to emperor level, and now, he had become a universe knight. The Green Ape and some of the other ferocious beasts were the subordinates of the Black Wind Tiger. Now that they had retreated from the forbidden land of Rising Sun, they naturally had to return to the star nest. DEC Serpent Worm clone, who had transformed into a green ape, was able to smoothly enter the planet where the Black Wind Tiger resided. Since the Black Wind Tiger was a ferocious beast, its direct subordinates were also ferocious beasts. The nomadic army originally had an army of ferocious beasts. Although they had joined the Magic Hall later on, the Magic Hall also had an army of ferocious beasts, which was the original forbidden land of Rising Sunday. That group of ferocious beasts, but the ferocious beasts of the nomadic army were not separated. They still belonged to the nomadic army. There were a large number of ferocious beasts in the entire planet, and they were all elites of different races. However, the most powerful one was the Black Wind Tiger, and he was the only universe knight guarding the planet. To the Sea Serpent Worm clone, who had the power of a 7th-level Desolate Master, the so-called universe knights were not even worth an ant. The Green Ape's cave was not far from the giant mountain where the Black Wind Tiger resided. After entering the planet, the Green Ape went straight to the giant mountain. With a flash of his body, he went straight to the nest of the Black Wind Tiger. As the Black Wind Tiger had just broken through to Universe Night, he was not in seclusion at the moment. However, this was the forbidden land of Rising Sun after all, and it was impossible for there to be an enemy attack, so the Black Wind Tiger was not vigilant. Besides, the Green Ape was originally his subordinate, so even if the Black Wind Tiger sensed his approach with his spiritual power, he did not think much of it. He even thought that the Green Ape had something important to report. Thus, the Green Ape smoothly entered the Black Wind Tiger's cave on the mountainside of the giant mountain. In this place there was no one else except the Black Wind Tiger. Almost at the moment when the Green Ape saw the Black Wind Tiger, the Green Ape changed his body and turned back into the Sea Serpent Worm clone. See, this is... The Black Wind Tiger was stunned for a moment. He was shocked and wanted to jump up, but everything was too late. Wung. With an almost undetectable low buzzing sound, several tentacles on the back of the Sea Serpent Worm clone shot out a black and gray light. After touching the Black Wind Tiger's body, it immediately turned into a hazy black and gray light shield and covered the Black Wind Tiger's entire body. It only lasted for a breath. After a breath, the black and gray light shield that covered the Black Wind Tiger's entire body suddenly shrank rapidly and turned into a point like a firefly. Its speed was faster than before, and in the blink of an eye, it shot toward the Black Wind Tiger clone. In an instant, it entered the glabella of the Sea Serpent Worm and disappeared. Wung! Almost at the next moment, as the tentacles on the back of the Sea Serpent Worm shook, the second low buzzing sound was heard. Under the imperceptible light, a light shield appeared from the Sea Serpent Worm clone's body and spread out, covering the entire body of the sea serpent worm clone. Soon the black light shield flashed and disappeared in an instant. When it entered the body of the sea serpent worm clone again, everything was quiet again. The whole process was so fast that it took less than a breath. However, in such a short time, the entire body of the sea serpent worm, which was 10,000 feet in size, changed dramatically again. Now it was no longer a sea serpent worm, nor was it a green ape with a green mane. It had turned into the appearance of a black-wind tiger, and the aura of its cultivation had become that of a universe knight. In addition, even the aura of its godly soul had completely become that of a black-wind tiger. There was no aura of a sea serpent worm at all. Even if a supreme being who had reached the desolate master realm used his godly consciousness to explore, he would absolutely not be able to see anything. Abnormality. In just a few moments, a universe knight had been annihilated. For today's magic hall, universe knights were indeed nothing. Among the higher-ups of the magic hall, they were merely the weakest existences. However, the Black Wind Tiger was one of the first batch of generals to follow Yi Xian. Even when he, Green Ox, Three-Clawed Flood Dragon, and the others led the entire space nomadic army to hide in the void space of the fragment of the universe for dozens of years, he had never fallen. He had never left. He had gritted his teeth and endured. Now, if the Black Wind Tiger had fallen in the space battlefield, Yi Xian would have nothing to say. As a great being in the space battlefield, falling in the space war was the most normal ending. But now, it was right under Yi Xian's nose, silently erased from the lair of the Xuxing Forbidden Area. If Yi Xian were to find out about this, he definitely wouldn't let this matter rest. He would definitely be enraged to the heavens. There was practically no suspense on this point. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 4875. Within a short period of time, Black Wind Tiger had been swallowed up by Di's clam bug body, and both its body and soul had been destroyed. This was expected. Although Black Wind Tiger was already a universe knight, it was still too weak for Di's clam bug body. It was not even comparable to an ant. Coupled with the unique bloodline talent of the clam bug body, Black Wind Tiger had been killed without anyone noticing. If Di's clam bug body had planned to stay dormant for a long time, the truth of Black Wind Tiger's death would have been known in a short period of time. It would have remained hidden, and there was basically no possibility of being exposed. In fact, Di had originally planned to do the same. This time he had used this carefully created clamworm avatar to sneak into the forbidden land of Rising Sun, in order to find out the truth behind the Demon Hall Master, controlling the mantis-winged beast under Di-Air's command. That mantis-winged beast was not only one of the 3 battle beasts formed by the fusion of hundreds of millions of members of the entire automaton race, but its cultivation had also reached the terrifying 9th stage of the great completion of the remote antiquity Supreme Master, which was half a step into the path of heaven. It was also an automaton without flesh and blood, and it did not even have a spirit. However, the master of the magic hall was a life of flesh and blood, and they were not in the same state at all. It could be said that there was no possibility of using a spirit to control it or to possess it. However, in fact, the master of the magic hall had done it, and it was extremely fast. In just a moment, the mantis-winged beast had surrendered and was completely refined by him. Its degree of control was not even comparable to that of Di-Air. After all this news was sent back to Tianji City, Di was shocked and immediately felt an unprecedented threat. After all, Di-Air's automaton race and his Tianji clan were essentially the same. They were both automaton life forms. Moreover, there were more than 100 million members of the automaton race who had electronic consciousness under Di-Air's command. Even though 1/3 of them had been lost because of the mantis-winged beast, there were still more than 80 million of them. However, Di's Tianji clan was different. Even now, there were only slightly more than 10 million members of the Tianji clan under Di's command, and every one of them was extremely precious and powerful. However, no matter how strong it was, could it be stronger than the mantis behemoth that had reached the 9th order supremacy of the ancients? Even the mantis behemoth, formed by the fusion of more than 30 million machine race clansmen, was instantly controlled by the master of the magic hall, let alone the Tianji race clansmen under his command. Even Di himself felt greatly threatened. Although he was the clan leader of the Tianji clan, in fact, in essence, he was the same as Di Air, the Machine clan, and any other member of the Tianji clan. They were all mechanical and electronic life forms. It was this kind of threat that made Di feel extremely uneasy. Yi Xian, the Star Master of the Tianhe Star of the human clan, had once infiltrated the Tianji clan. Even he had not noticed anything unusual at the beginning. That incident was a scar in Di Yi's heart, and because of it, he had been punished by the major forces of the three main planes of the starry sky. Li and his race laughed at him for a long time. Until now, there were still people mentioning it from time to time. This time, such a strange situation had occurred again, and it was even more serious than before. Even the mantis behemoth formed by the fusion of more than 30 million machine race clansmen, who had reached the ninth order supremacy of the ancients, had been instantly captured. Therefore, even Di did not dare to lower his guard. If he did not find out the truth of this matter, he would not easily expose himself, because he would be forced to leave. If he wanted to use the same method to infiltrate the forbidden land of Rising Sun in the future, it would be difficult. This time Di had been prepared to lie low in the forbidden land of Rising Sun for a long time until he found out the truth. However, he did not expect that the surprise would come so quickly. He had just infiltrated the forbidden land of Rising Sun, and the truth of this matter was unexpectedly uncovered by him. All this was because of the arrival of the Black Wind Tiger that he had just devoured. The Black Wind Tiger was a high-level member of the nomadic army, an old subordinate of Yi Xian. Moreover, his loyalty had long been verified during the nomadic army's decades of hiding. Therefore, Yi Xian did not hide his true identity from Green Ox and the other high-level members of the nomadic army, including the Black Wind Tiger, who also knew. Now, as he was devoured by Di Yi's Mirage Worm avatar, his spirit and body were destroyed. Although the memory that originally belonged to the Black Wind Tiger was not completely taken away by Di Erlang, only a small part of it dissipated, about 40%. As for the remaining 60% of the memory, after he was devoured and refined, it was now completely known by Di Erlang's Mirage Worm avatar, including the part about the true identity of the Master of the Magic Hall. The moment this memory was read, Di, who had already changed into the appearance of the Black Wind Tiger, trembled slightly. His whole mind was buzzing. For a moment he was stunned and doubted that the memory he had read was messed up. However, he quickly reacted and realized that all of this was real. In other words, the so-called Master of the Magic Hall was actually Yi Xian, the Master of the Sky River Star, the despicable guy who had once infiltrated the Tianji clan. Although this fact was shocking if it had been before, basically no one would have thought of it this way. After all, when the five alliances had joined forces to seize the Magic Hall, the Master of the Magic Hall and the Master of the Sky River Star, Yi Xian, had appeared at the same time. When this happened, although Di was not there, he had heard the details later. At this moment he finally understood why the Master of the Magic Hall had always left a doppelganger in the Magic Hall, and never appeared again. Originally it was just a cover. At that time the Magic Hall must have been empty. The Blood Sea doppelganger, which had never appeared, had already taken the appearance of the Master of the Sky River Star, Yi Xian, to deceive everyone. When he realized this, Di also instantly understood the truth of how the Master of the Magic Hall could instantly control the mantis-winged beast formed by the fusion of more than 30 million members of the Machine clan. Yi Xian had previously killed several official members of the Tianji clan, including the young clan leader of the Tianji clan at that time, and they were also the clan's Heaven's Pride. It was unknown what method he had used, but later on, he had actually merged the electronic consciousnesses of those members of the Tianji clan together and refined them into an electronic doppelganger. Back then, the reason why he had been able to infiltrate the Tianji clan so smoothly that even the clan leader Di had not discovered him at first was because of this electronic doppelganger. The so-called electronic doppelganger was actually an electronic consciousness, the core of all electronic life, including Di Air, the entire Tianji clan, and the Machine clan was an electronic consciousness. It was like the soul of a flesh and blood creature. Having an electronic consciousness was equivalent to having an electronic doppelganger. The reason why Yi Xian, who had transformed into the Master of the Magic Hall, had been able to reverse control the mantis-winged beast in an instant sounded extremely mysterious and strange. However, the truth was so simple that it was laughable. Since Yi Xian had an electronic doppelganger, this matter was very normal and there was nothing strange about it. Even if it had been DE, he would have been able to do the same if he had been caught off guard. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 4876. That damned bastard, he actually deceived everyone. After learning the truth, D instantly changed his plan. As he muttered to himself, the black wind tiger's eyes continued to flash with a cold light, revealing an endless chilling intent. According to his original plan, in order to find out the truth, the Mirage Worm avatar was very likely to be dormant in the forbidden land of Rising Sun for several years, or even longer. But now the truth he originally wanted to know had been solved, and he even unexpectedly learned more shocking secrets. Then, there was no need to continue to be dormant in the forbidden land of Rising Sunday. Although the Mirage Worm avatar was only one of his many avatars, because of its special bloodline talent, it was still very useful. D did not want to keep it dormant in the enemy camp. If there was an accident and it died, it would not be good. However, even if he did not continue to be dormant, he could not just leave quietly like this. Because so far, everything had been very smooth for him to sneak into the forbidden land of Rising Sunday. Such an opportunity would be very difficult to come by in the future. Even if he did not continue to be dormant before leaving, he could take advantage of this opportunity to do something. For example, launching a sneak attack on Yixian or something like that. The reason why Di had this idea was that, on the one hand, he had always held a grudge against Yixian. At that time, he had even issued a warrant for his arrest in the first universe because of this. But in the end, Yixian had been free and happy, and because of that accident, the Divine Legacy clan had been reduced to the laughingstock of countless forces and clans in the three main planes of the starry sky. Of course, this desire for revenge was only one of the reasons why he decided to take advantage of this opportunity to take action. Could even be said that it was a very small reason. At Di's level, there was basically no possibility of making some inappropriate impulsive decisions or actions because of anger in his heart. Now, the bigger reason why he decided to take action was that, in his opinion, the sneak attack had more than an 80% chance of success. Even if he could not kill Yixian in one fell swoop, it was very likely that he would be seriously injured. Moreover, through the memory of the Black Wind Tiger, Di learned more secrets. For example, Yixian had the purple gold elixir, the 9-colored magic elixir, and even a magic elixir of various levels that could allow one to quickly break through a realm in a short time by swallowing one. Of course, the most important clue was actually Yixian's cultivation level. This guy was not some peak desolate supremacy who was at the peak of the 9th stage great perfection. His cultivation base and strength were only at the 8th stage. His cultivation base at the 9th stage was completely achieved under the state of a bloodline ability similar to the Battle Lion clan's 9 changes of the Wild Lion clan. Although the Black Wind Tiger didn't have a clear understanding of this heaven-defying bloodline ability, through his memories, Di was completely unable to determine whether Yixian was able to maintain his cultivation at the peak of the 9th step of the Desolate Sovereign in this bloodline ability state. There is a certain time limit. However, in his opinion, as long as Yixian was not a true late-stage desolate supremacy, then there was no problem. Usually, on the battlefield outside, he would be extremely vigilant. However, now that the magic hall was powerful, he was in his own base camp, and Di was approaching with the identity of the Black Wind Tiger. Yixian would definitely be defenseless under such circumstances. Under such circumstances, even if his cultivation base and strength had really reached the late-stage desolate supremacy, it was very likely that he would be seriously injured, not to mention that this kind of desolate supremacy cultivation was achieved through the bloodline secret method. In Di's opinion, as long as he suddenly attacked when he was caught off guard, he would successfully kill or seriously injure Yixian and temporarily make him lose the ability to fight. In that case, the other existences in the entire forbidden land of Rising Sun were nothing to be afraid of. Yixian, who was seriously injured, could not summon his electronic doppelganger immediately, which was the mantis-winged giant beast with the battle strength of a 9th stage desolate supremacy. As long as he did not summon it immediately, Di would not give him such a chance again. In the entire forbidden land of Rising Sun, other than Yixian himself and the electronic doppelganger in the form of the mantis-winged giant beast, there were still the black-robed desolate supremacy and the 7 beautiful cultivators, who had the battle strength of a desolate supremacy. However, without exception, all of them were only at first stage of this realm. Even if they all swarmed up, they would not be a match for Di's Mirage Worm doppelganger. In other words, as long as he succeeded in this sneak attack, the entire Forbidden Land of Rising Sun would be wiped out by him. In one night, the magic hall would be destroyed, and the Forbidden Land of Rising Sun would completely become the paradise of the Tianji clan. Moreover, even if the sneak attack failed, with the Mirage Worm Doppelganger's late-stage 7th stage Desolate Supremacy cultivation base, and the unique bloodline power of the Mirage Worm clan, he could easily escape without any losses. The benefits were too great, but the risks were very small. The two were simply not proportional, and it could even be said that there was no comparison at all. No matter who it was, they would choose to attack. Yixian, this time you can't escape. Whoosh! With a cold light flashing in his eyes, Diyi's doppelganger, who had transformed into the form of a black-wind tiger, muttered softly. Before he finished speaking, his figure had turned into a ray of light and shot out. After rushing out of the cave, he passed through the atmosphere of the cave star and went straight to Yixian's cave residence. The star, which was the life star where the black magic hall was located, sped away. In the interior of the cave star, at the peak of the most majestic mountain that pierced the sky, there stood a black magic hall with a mysterious aura. This black hall was the symbol of the entire magic hall, and it was also Yixian's cave residence. Now Yixian was in the magic hall, but the 7 beautiful cultivators, the purplish warbler Duanmu Xiaocha Zhao Qianru, and the other girls were not there. They had all gone to the cave residences they had chosen and built in the interior of the star to cultivate. At this time, Yixian was not cultivating in seclusion. He just closed his eyes and sat cross-legged on the top of a huge rock near the cliff in front of the magic hall. He was thinking about the specific details of going to the Star Alliance and the Alliance of 10,000 Races, and launching a sneak attack on the 9-headed blood dragon and other desolate supremacies of the Human Race Federation. Black Wind Tiger? The next moment he seemed to have suddenly sensed something. He frowned and let out a cry of surprise. He subconsciously raised his head and looked at the distant star atmosphere in front of him. In his line of sight, a figure just happened to shoot in from outside the atmosphere. It was Black Wind Tiger. However, Black Wind Tiger now looked very respectful, and his body had shrunk to less than 1,000 feet. His speed was not very fast either. It looked as if he had come to report something important to Yixian. In Diyi's opinion, all of this was normal. Even if he started from Black Wind Tiger's memory, he did not feel that there was anything wrong with this. Although Black Wind Tiger was only a universe knight, he was a senior warlord under Yixian's command, so he was qualified to meet him and report the situation. Have you broken through to the universe knight level? Then congratulations. Just at this moment, Yixian, who was sitting cross-legged on the huge rock at the peak of the mountain, suddenly had a flash of light in his eyes. He sneered. However, your guts seem to be the same as your cultivation. It's getting fatter and fatter. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 4877. Yixian raised his head and saw Black Wind Tiger sitting cross-legged on the giant rock at the peak of the giant mountain. Suddenly his eyes flashed and he sneered. You've broken through to the universe knight level? Congratulations. However, your guts seem to be getting fatter and fatter just like your cultivation. At this moment Diyi's heart trembled. His body trembled slightly, and he was instantly alerted. Something was wrong. Black Wind Tiger was a resource warrior under his command. He had just arrived and had yet to speak. Besides, Diyi was sure that there was nothing abnormal about his expression or behavior. Yixian should not have spoken in such a manner. Not only was there a hint of mockery in his words, but there was also an undisguised sneer at the corner of his mouth. This clearly showed that he was enraged. Something must have gone wrong somewhere. What? Until now you still haven't realized what went wrong? At this moment Yixian, who was sitting cross-legged on the peak of the giant mountain opposite him, had already stood up with a sneer. His body was filled with murderous intent. The words in his mouth were filled with coldness. I have to say, this kind of transformation technique is indeed extraordinary. Even I can't see anything wrong with it. However, you probably didn't get the complete memory of Black Wind Tiger, right? Otherwise, it's impossible for you not to know that even Green Bull, that old bastard, has never passed through the atmosphere to enter this cave star. No matter who you are, since you dared to kill my general today, you will definitely die. Hong! Before the last sentence was finished, Yixian's body had already rushed out like the fastest shooting star. In the blink of an eye, he was already in front of Black Wind Tiger. He threw a punch and the void space was shattering inch by inch. The earth-shattering roar was deafening. So this is the mistake? I made a mistake. At this moment, after hearing his words, Black Wind Tiger's eyes flashed with understanding, revealing a strong sense of annoyance that could not be dispersed. As he muttered, his body rapidly retreated. In the blink of an eye, he had already passed through the atmosphere of the cave star and reached the void space of the universe outside the star. Boom! Yixian, who was in his ape form, chased after him relentlessly. He threw a punch, and the atmosphere of the cavern star churned violently. A large hole appeared, and Yixian's figure instantly rushed out and chased after him. In the next instant, Yixian's figure appeared in the void of the universe outside the stars. Before the surging atmosphere behind him could close, he had already spread his arms again and punched forward. At this time, Di was already 100 million miles away. Even the appearance of the Black Wind Tiger was no longer there. A huge sea serpent worm appeared in his line of sight. The aura emitting from its body was clearly that of a seventh-order desolate ancient supreme. Vaguely, there was also an aura unique to electronic life forms. Mechanical mirage worm? Seeing this scene, Yixian's eyes also showed a touch of understanding. With a flash of inspiration in his mind, he immediately whispered, "You are not D-Air, you are D. This is one of your mechanical mirage worm avatars. Since you also know about the mirage worm, then you should understand that today you can't keep me here." After being seen through by Yixian, Di sneered. He looked at Yixian from head to toe and said sarcastically, "You are really good at acting. You actually deceived everyone. Yixian, I will come back again. You should be careful. Be careful." Ha ha ha. Buzz. In the strange laughter, the tentacles on the back of the sea serpent worm suddenly shook violently, and a very low buzzing sound was heard. A light shield appeared from its body and spread out, covering the whole body of the sea serpent worm. Then the grayish-black light shield flashed and disappeared instantly. Di's sea serpent worm avatars also disappeared. The whole process was extremely fast. In less than a breath, even Yixian did not have time to react. Damn worm. I hate worms. Watching Di's sea serpent worm avatars leave calmly, Yixian's face was gloomy to the extreme. His eyes were shining with coldness. He muttered softly and raised his head to let out a shocking roar. Roar? He had always disliked the space serpent worm tribe. If he encountered an opponent of the same level, Yixian would definitely target the space serpent worm and kill it first. Because the bloodline talent and magical power of the space serpent worm tribe were too strange. There were all kinds of them and it was impossible to guard against. For example, Di's sea serpent worm avatars, who had just escaped, were only at the late stage of the 7th order remote antiquity realm. Yixian was now in the state of the 9th transformation of the demonic ape. Even if his body was only 10 feet tall, not 60 million miles long, the majestic power of qi and blood in his body was already at the peak of the 9th order remote antiquity realm. Under normal circumstances, even if he did not use the power of the Blood Sea secret technique, Yixian had enough confidence to kill Di's sea serpent worm avatars by condensing the 3 Blood Sea serpents. But in fact, Di had activated the bloodline power of the sea serpent worm tribe and disappeared in the blink of an eye. There was no trace of where he went. In this case, no matter how strong Yixian was, he did not even have a chance to attack. So they could only watch and sigh in frustration. Swoosh! Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Yixian's roar had just sounded when in the surrounding void, there were already figures shooting over. Turning around, there were the 6-headed blood dragon Zhao Dong Qiannan, Sun Shi Li Bei, Elder Sangji, and other great beings of the remnant people. There were also Green Ox and Yulinglong Long Ao, Gongjun, Howling Moon Mastiff, Three-Clawed Dragon, Long Shantang, Blood Dragon Ancestor, Green Rock Ancestor, Blood Dragon and Green Rock Ancestor, War Lion Ancestor, and so on. There were a total of thousands of figures, all of whom were Universe Knights and higher-ups of the Magic Hall in the Forbidden Land of Rising Sunday originally. Most of them were in closed-door cultivation to increase their cultivation, but recently they had just finished a breakthrough and were still preparing for the next round of closed-door cultivation. Now that they heard Yixian's shocking roar, their hearts shook violently as they rushed over. In addition to the primordial porcupine, primordial hairy turtle, and mosquito butcher, the black-robed desolate master, Naples of the Sky River Troop, Demon King Mo Wention, Demon Uncle Mo Ran, Dark Turtle Tribe Leader Mingjiu, and Mad Mosquito Emperor were all present. Old Man Xian Yuan, Old Man Duanmu, Master Bodhi, and other higher-ups of small idol powers and families were all present. Fear was written all over their faces. Obviously, they did not understand why Yixian was so angry all of a sudden. Black Wind Tiger has fallen. Yixian turned around and glanced at the group of higher-ups of the magic hall. His face became gloomier and gloomier. D sent a clam bug body here. It is a desolate master at the later stage of the 7th stage. After swallowing, it can transform into the appearance of any flesh and blood creature. Even its godly spirit aura is perfect, and it is difficult to distinguish. Speaking of this, a cold light flashed in his eyes. During this period of time, the patrol outside the star field has been increased. At least 4 Universe Supreme Masters are guarding outside the star field at all times. They are connected with each other's godly consciousness. If they discover anything unusual, they are to be alerted immediately. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 4878. What? The Black Wind Tiger actually died? That insect just now was actually the clone of the Tianji race's patriarch D. That damned guy, he actually snuck into the forbidden land of Rising Sun and killed one of our generals. This is absolutely intolerable. We must return an eye for an eye. Lord Demon Lord, please give the order. We are willing to lead the army and fight against the Tianji race. Roar. Screech. As soon as Yixian finished speaking, the higher-ups of the magic hall in the void in front of them were instantly enraged. All kinds of exclamations rang out like a tide, and the roars and howls of endless anger filled the sky. Everyone was asking to go to war and avenge the Black Wind Tiger. Of course we will avenge him, but now is not the time to start an all-out war with the Tianji race. Otherwise the Heavenly Dao Union will be secretly happy. Swish, swish, swish. A cold light flashed in Yixian's eyes. As he spoke, he waved his hand, and with a faint sound of breaking through the air, 4 rays of light shot out from his hand. These 4 rays of light soared in the wind, and in less than half a breath, they had already turned into 4 giant mantis-winged beasts that were 50 million kilometers in size. Their basic forms were exactly the same, and they walked on 2 legs with their blade-like mantis wings. They lined up in the void in front of them. Although the 4 mantis-winged beasts looked the same, there were subtle differences, and these subtle differences were obviously due to the fact that they had fused with 4 different war drums. The 4 war drums from before were now located in the chests of the 4 mantis-winged beasts. It was also because of their fusion that the 4 mantis-winged beasts had different patterns on their chests, like emblems. Ordinary. From left to right, the emblems on the chests of the 4 mantis-winged beasts were a purple gold void ladle, a ferocious one-horned weeping soul beast, a gray slime, and a blood-red blood mosquito beast. Obviously, these 4 emblems were based on the characteristics of the 4 major kinetic energy clans of the 4 war clans. In the future, these 4 mantis-winged battle beasts would be the only way to distinguish them. As for their cultivation, these 4 mantis-winged battle beasts were merely 8th-order Venerable Realm experts. But later on, Yixian took action and infused a war rod into each of their bodies. Their cultivation levels rose once again, returning to the perfected 9th stage of the primordial supremacy realm. In other words, they were at the half-step heavenly Dao realm. At this moment, as Yixian summoned the 4 great heavenly kings, the upper echelons of the demon palace were stunned for a moment before their expressions changed drastically. When they sensed the aura of their cultivations, they all cried out in shock. This is Hiss, Supreme of the Ancients at the peak of the 9th order? How is that possible? Isn't there only one? The 4 in front of us are clearly existences that have been disintegrated once. Why are their cultivation levels not affected at all? They are still at the half-step heavenly Dao realm? Also, their forms are clearly slightly different. There is an additional emblem on each of their chests. They look a little familiar. For half-step heavenly Dao realm experts, how terrifying. Even if they are Fiend Lord's 3 Bloodsea avatars, doesn't that mean that our magic hall already has 7 Supreme of the Ancients at the perfected 9th stage of the primordial supremacy realm? They are all my avatars. As the exclamation sounded, Yixian nodded lightly and continued. Previously, the 4 war drums in my hands had been infused into their bodies. Therefore, their cultivation levels have risen. If they were to fuse further, they would very likely advance to the true heavenly Tao realm. But that's not the case. The primeval heavens, I would not allow it. Therefore, if nothing unexpected happens, this will be the strongest form of this avatar of mine for a short period of time. From this day forth, they will be the 4 heavenly kings of my magic hall. Heavenly King Void, Heavenly King Soul, Heavenly King Time, and Heavenly King Blood Mosquito. Upon saying that, a cold glint flashed in Yixian's eyes. This time I will be taking 2 with me to the Heavenly Legacy race. The other 2 Heavenly King avatars will be guarding the magic hall. The 7 beautiful cultivators will also be stabilizing Huang, who has just broken through in my cave abode star. His cultivation level. However, he will probably be out of seclusion soon. With the 2 Heavenly King avatars in them, together with Black Robe, it will be enough to protect the magic hall. Whoosh! 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 Just as he finished speaking, Yixian waved his hand. Among the 4 heavenly kings in the distant void, 2 instantly transformed into beams of light and entered his body. They were the Heavenly King Void and the Heavenly King Blood Mosquito. The other 2 Heavenly King Soul and the Heavenly King Time turned around at the same time. In the blink of an eye, they passed through the atmosphere of the cave abode star and entered the star, disappearing. After doing all this, Yixian turned his head and glanced at the higher-ups of the magic hall in the void in front of him. Without saying anything, he nodded slightly as a greeting. Then with a flash of his body, he instantly transformed into a beam of light and shot away, disappearing into the distance. The end. A day passed in the blink of an eye. However, on this day, this vast and boundless fragment of the untainted world was destined to be unable to calm down, and a huge uproar would be set off. Dee's Mirage Insect avatar had indeed left and returned without any success. He was not able to successfully take advantage of this opportunity to cause some kind of unexpected blow and harm to Yixian. However, this time he sneaked into the forbidden land of Rising Sun was not without any gain. On the contrary, his gain could be said to be extremely great. It was this trip to the magic hall that allowed to see through the true identity of the master of the magic hall. He was Yixian, the master of the Sky River Star. The 2 of them were originally one, so they had deceived everyone. At first glance, this news seemed to be of no use to De. However, if he thought about it carefully, he would find that it was absolutely significant. This was because the Heavenly Law Alliance was formed by the merger of the Star Alliance, the Alliance of 10,000 Races, and the Human Federation. These 3 alliances were the major races and forces from the 3 galaxies. The relationship between them and Yixian, the master of the Sky River Star, could be said to be complicated. However, in general, before the void crack in the Shadow Devil Star area of the second universe appeared, the relationship between Yixian, the master of the Sky River Star, and the major races and forces in the 3 dimensions had basically been restored. Under such circumstances, if the higher-ups of the 3 alliances, especially the higher-ups of the 2 camps of the human clan, knew that the master of the magic hall was Yixian, they would be so angry that they would vomit blood on the spot. This was simply too abominable. He had been playing them like monkeys, and did not care about the feelings of the past at all. In this way, after entering the void fragment of the untainted land, the grievances between the 3 alliances and the magic hall would converge. Both new and old hatred would converge. Under such circumstances, there was a great possibility that the Heavenly Law Alliance would once again have a war with the magic hall. Obviously, this was the result that De and the entire Tianji clan wanted to see. Once the war started, no matter which force he wanted to deal with, he could secretly take action. It was with this purpose that after De's clamworm avatar rushed out of the forbidden land of Rising Sun and returned to the Tianji city, he immediately sent out a large number of intelligent robots to disguise themselves as the human clan and the ominous beast experts, and wantonly spread the news outside. Overnight, the entire void fragment of the untainted land was completely in an uproar, setting off a great disturbance. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 4879. As De's news spread, the entire void of the Eldritch world was in an uproar. The Heavenly Tao Alliance had the biggest reaction. As soon as the news spread, the leaders of the three major forces of the Heavenly Tao Alliance gathered together. They held an emergency meeting at the same time, in the central region of the Human Federation, on the peak of a giant life star. There were dozens of figures gathered in the hall of the Federation headquarters for an emergency meeting. Those who were qualified to participate in this meeting were all the primordial beings of the Human Federation. There were more than 40 of them. Air, who had just broken through to the desolate supremacy realm, was also here. The other 6 ancient Baron Supremes of the Human Federation had yet to show their faces. Aside from Air, Immortal Emperor Zhu Wutian, Lord of the Sky End Palace, and Qi Xiaohong, Lord of the Temple of Glory, were also seated in a corner of the Seat of Honor. Aside from them, there were 4 or 5 figures seated in the other 2 corners of the Seat of Honor. The 4 figures on the left appeared to be humans, but there was a thick feral presence emanating from their bodies. They were none other than the 4 primordial supremes of the Alliance. They were from the first universe's slave races: the Hell Ant, the Space Rat, the Giant Ferocious, and the Evil Slime. As for their cultivation level, they were all mid-level primordial supremacies. The weakest was at level 4, while the strongest was at level 6. The 5 figures on the right looked like humans as well, but the aura coming from their bodies showed that they had the bloodline of ferocious beasts, and it was very strong. They were the 5 desolate supremacies from the Star Alliance: the Scarlet Unicorn, the 9 Phantom Demon Crocodile, the 9-headed Blood Dragon, the Azure Skyrock, and the Blood Devouring Lion. These 5 desolate supremacies were not weak. They were all primordial supremacies. The weakest was at level 1, while the strongest was at level 7. In the entire hall, there were 9 desolate supremacies. Usually they would not gather together, but this time the news was too shocking. The 9 desolate supremacies of the Star Alliance and the Alliance of 10,000 races moved immediately through the depths of the 3 great alliances. They built a wormhole and rushed over. As the meeting started, the faces of the Heavenly Law Alliance's higher-ups in the hall turned ugly. Their gloomy expressions were filled with resentment. This was especially the case for the Bloodchelan and the 9 Netherworld Demon Crocodile, who were gritting their teeth so hard that cracking sounds could be heard. I didn't expect the master of the magic hall to be Yixian. Sigh. After a while, Air was the first to speak. He sighed halfway through his sentence, revealing endless loneliness. Speaking of which, when we were on the immortal planet, I had a good relationship with that kid. I didn't expect to be played by him like this. If the news wasn't released by the clan leader of the Tianji clan, I wouldn't have believed it. Presumably, was alerted when the mantis-winged beast was instantly controlled, so he sneaked into the Rising Sun Forbidden Land. He didn't expect to discover this shocking secret. However, since the master of the magic hall is Yixian, it makes sense that he was able to subdue the mantis-winged beast in an instant. After all, he once infiltrated the Tianji clan and even fooled who made him the young clan leader of the Tianji clan. He left behind a laughingstock. That guy must have killed an official member of the Tianji clan, taken their electronic consciousness, and refined an electronic doppelganger after mixing them together. He should be able to do this. At this point, Air didn't say anything else. He turned to look at the higher-ups of the Heavenly Law Alliance in the hall, and a mysterious smile appeared on his face. This was indeed a little strange. Not long ago, Air had suffered a great loss at the hands of the master of the magic hall, and lost 1/3 of the members of the Machinery clan. Now that he knew that the master of the magic hall was Yixian and had been played for a fool, he should have been even more furious. However, he clearly had a feeling of incomparable certainty. In fact, the current Air was indeed certain in his heart. Before he knew that the master of the magic hall was Yixian, he had been filled with grief and indignation. The loss of 1/3 of the members of the Machinery clan was extremely painful. However, now that he knew that the master of the magic hall was Yixian, Air was no longer worried. In fact, he was secretly delighted. This was because, in his opinion, the loss of 1/3 of the members of the Machinery clan was only temporary in Yixian's hands. Soon, he would be able to take back even more, including everything that belonged to Yixian now. At that time, it would all fall into his hands. No one present knew about all of this. Even the Immortal Emperor only knew that Yixian's body contained a devouring system that was spread out by the Emperor. However, the Immortal Emperor only knew a little about the true details of this devouring system, The atmosphere in the hall was a little strange. The other higher-ups of the Heavenly Law Alliance turned to look at each other and took a deep look at D-Air. They obviously felt that something was wrong, but they didn't ask further, as this wasn't appropriate. Soon everyone put this matter to the back of their minds. When they thought of Yixian, the nine-headed blood dragon, the azure skyrock, and the blood-devouring war lion from the Star Alliance, they immediately gritted their teeth and spoke with hatred. I didn't expect that it was actually that guy who fooled us all. How despicable! New hatred and old hatred surged into my heart. I can't wait to tear him into pieces immediately. Now that I speak of it, I was once schemed against by him before I recovered from my injuries and emerged into the world. That fellow actually sent a drop of evil venom through the talisman marking chains of the nether furnace, and it almost poisoned me and my son to death. The last person to speak was the nine-headed blood dragon. It would have been better if he hadn't said these words. When he mentioned this matter, the scarlet unicorn and the nine netherworld demon crocodile trembled in anger. The nine-headed blood dragon wasn't the only one who was harmed by the evil venom. Speaking of which, the scarlet unicorn and the nine netherworld demon crocodile had suffered even greater losses. At that time they had each sent a clone of their consciousness to follow the rune chain to the depths of the origin of all evil star domain. However, it was a pity that they didn't find Yixian. Now that they knew that the master of the magic hall was him, the resentment in their hearts could be imagined. On the side, the old monster Huang Zun from the 4 clans of the Alliance of 10,000 Clans, the Hell Ant, the Space Rat, the Giant Ferocious, and the Evil Spirit Slime also had extremely ugly expressions. Speaking of which, the first 3 clans among them had once formed an alliance with Yixian. However, in their opinion, just because of that relationship, Yixian shouldn't have fooled them like this. However, compared to the Scarlet Unicorn, the 9 Netherworld Demon Crocodile, and the 9-headed blood dragon, the resentment in their hearts was obviously lighter. At this time, their minds were naturally stronger. After exchanging a look, they immediately reminded everyone. Everyone, please calm down. Don't fall into Di's trap. Yes, we can't let Yixian and the magic hall go, but not now. We shouldn't be the first to stand out in this matter. Let the Tianji clan fight with him for a while first. This time, the magic hall has been slapped in the face. With Yixian's character, he definitely won't let this go. Yes. If there are no accidents, the war will break out soon. We'll just sit by and watch. We'll be happy and at ease. Depending on the situation, we can even launch a sneak attack on the forbidden land of Rising Sun in the later stages. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 4880. Heaven's Legacy Race. Heaven's Legacy Star Zone. This star zone was extremely vast, spanning hundreds of billions of miles. Although there were countless abandoned stars, there weren't many life stars, which was why it wasn't chosen by the Great Five Alliance. Even some small forces and races didn't care about it. However, for the Heaven's Legacy race, this was the best paradise. In less than a year, as the Heaven's Legacy race arrived in this void fragment, countless mechanical beasts and intelligent robots began to transform this star zone. Now this star zone had been transformed into a world of machines, and the surface of countless abandoned stars was filled with machines. Mechanical Giant City, the assembly line of intelligent robots and mechanical beasts. In the void, there were all kinds of mechanical beasts, and they were extremely ferocious. They covered the sky and earth, as if they had entered a vast ocean of mechanical creatures. The current Heaven's Legacy race was completely different from what it had been 100 years ago. There were more than 100 billion modified battleships. Among them, there were more than 10 million official members of the Heaven's Legacy race, and they could transform into metal balls in the shape of stars or different mechanical beasts with different shapes at any time. There were only slightly more than 10 million people, which was not a large number. However, without exception, all of them were already above the undying level. Among them, there were tens of thousands of Universe Knights, close to 10,000 Universe Masters, close to 1,000 Universe Supremes, and close to 100 Primordial Great Beings. As for the number of Primordial Supreme Beings, it was still unknown, but they definitely existed. At least, when they rushed out of the wormhole and transformed into a giant demonic dragon in Heaven's Legacy City, they could vaguely sense a few auras of desolate supremes. Moreover, judging from the fact that Di's clamworm avatar had the strength of a late 7th Order Desolate Venerable, the Heavenly Fate race probably had a lot of Desolate Venerables, and most of them were probably De's avatars. He was a mechanical life form, and he could transform into tens of thousands of clones. When he entered any mechanical or electronic device, it was as if he had an additional body. Even the higher-ups of the Heaven's Path Alliance in the void 100 billion miles away didn't dare to enter this place. But today, ever since the Heaven's Legacy race had established this star field as their headquarters, they had welcomed their first outsider. Moreover, this outsider didn't even bother to hide himself. Instead, he brazenly swaggered over from the distant void, Xiao. Along with an incomparably sharp piercing sound, a ray of light shot over, closing in the blink of an eye and directly charging into the star domain where the Tianji race was located. This figure was around 3 meters tall, and shockingly, it was the master of the Magic Hall, a ferocious ape with a tyrannical aura that overflowed into the sky. Roar, Walala! As he descended, the figure of the Magic Hall master abruptly stopped in midair. Then there was the sound of splashing water. His entire body collapsed and turned into a sea of blood that spread out and covered a corner of the universe. Roar! Roar! Screech! The speed was too fast. Almost in the next instant, shocking roars and vicious howls came from 3 different directions in this vast sea of blood. In the boundless sea of blood, 3 huge figures rose from the ground in the blink of an eye. They were the 3 great demon bodies of the ancient ape demons. A body of flesh and blood was a cosmic violent ape. The body of bones did not have any flesh and blood. It was only a purplish gold skeleton that emitted an endless ferocious aura. The body of the black fog was a shroud of black fog. Even the pair of eyes were merely 2 shrouds of purple light. It was extremely strange. In just a short breath, the 3 Blood Sea avatars had already condensed. The cultivation aura that emanated from their bodies was shockingly at the 9th stage of the primordial supreme realm. And with the addition of the boundless chi and blood in his 60 million kilometer body, even if these 3 Blood Sea avatars had not reached the heavenly Tao realm, they were definitely the strongest existences below the heavenly Tao realm. Roar! At this moment, his figure had just leaped out of the Blood Sea when Bao Yuan, the Blood Sea doppelganger of the 3 Blood Sea doppelgangers, suddenly raised his head and roared. He raised his finger and pointed forward. His voice was cold and filled with endless disdain. Come out and fight. Swish. Swish. Before he finished speaking, the violent ape had already waved his hand again. With a faint sound of breaking through the air, 2 rays of light shot out from his hand. The rays of light expanded in the wind, and in less than half a breath, they had already transformed into 2 giant mantis-winged warbeasts that were 50 million kilometers in size. Their basic forms were identical. They stood upright, and their mantis wings were like blades. They lined up in the void in front of them. Furthermore, these 2 mantis-winged battle beasts each had a different pattern in front of their chests, which looked like emblems. The emblem on the left was a purplish gold void ladle. It was none other than the void heavenly king. And the emblem on the right was a blood-red blood mosquito beast. It was none other than the blood mosquito heavenly king. At this moment 5 figures lined up in the void. They were all Yixian's avatars. As for their cultivation strength, they had all reached the 9th stage of the primordial supreme realm, which was the half-step heavenly Tao realm. 5 half-step heavenly Tao realm experts lined up in a straight line across the void. Such a scene was truly too shocking. In this vast and boundless primordial world fragment, it had probably never happened before in countless years. With the appearance of this scene, the terrifying suppression of the 5 half-step heavenly Tao experts emanated. The entire stellar domain spanning hundreds of billions of kilometers instantly trembled a few times. Bam! 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 Almost in the next instant, in the nearby hundreds of millions of kilometers of the void, a few intelligent robots that were roaming the void could not withstand the terrifying suppression due to their weaker cultivation levels. They directly exploded and died. As for the more powerful mechanical warbeasts, their fighting spirit was aroused. They were not true members of the Heaven's Legacy race, but advanced intelligent robots in the form of mechanical warbeasts, forged from the flesh and blood of primordial life forms. They did not have self-awareness. Therefore, even when facing the 5 powerful half-step heavenly Tao experts, they did not feel any fear. They did not have that awareness at all. Ka-cha-cha. Boom! At that moment, with the passive activation of their combat state, the countless mechanical war beasts of different sizes in the surrounding void began to move. Thunderous roars rang out one after another, accompanied by the sounds of machinery breaking in. The battleships in the surrounding void space all began to change in shape. At the same time, the various massive facilities inside were also shifting, and the molecular structure of the alloy materials was changing. Their density constantly increased. In just a few seconds, the massive interstellar battleships transformed into ferocious mechanical war beasts. They were of different sizes, but their cultivation auras were not weak. In this form they could move and dodge. Compared to their battleship form, they were much more agile. They had lived for far too long. This scene was too shocking. As far as the eye could see, in a mechanical sea spanning hundreds of billions of kilometers, 5 massive half-step heavenly Tao experts with astounding auras stood in a row across the void. And around them was a mechanical sea filled with countless mechanical war beasts. It was a chilling sight. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version website. Chapter 4881. Are you hiding and not coming out? After roaring angrily, seeing that D did not appear, Yixian immediately sneered and roared again. In that case, I'll give you a greeting gift first. As soon as he finished speaking, the Void Heavenly King and the Blood Mosquito Heavenly King, who were on the left and right sides of the 3 Blood Sea clones, immediately moved. The former took a step forward and raised his head to roar. D, get out here! As the angry roar sounded, the soldier ladle emblem on the Void Heavenly King's chest suddenly burned and shone brightly. At this moment, the tens of millions of soldier ladles and the thousands of beehive nodes of the Void Battle Army all moved under the command of the Void Heavenly King. There were a total of thousands of beehive nodes with a diameter of 3,000 meters. Inside each of them there were tens of thousands of Void soldiers. The ladles guarded and activated the unique biological frequency of the Soldier Ladle clan with all their might. These unique biological frequencies were uniformly transmitted out under the guidance of the ladles in each beehive node. Thousands of beehive nodes had thousands of biological waves that were like large rivers. All of them flowed along the pipeline, surging towards the core node of the core circle, and then gathered into one. In the end, with the sudden roar of the Void Heavenly King, this terrifying mysterious biological frequency, like a tsunami, instantly poured out from his mouth in all directions. Buzz! Buzz! An invisible shockwave roared out. This majestic and terrifying biological frequency directly caused dense and weak void tremors in the void. Its effect far exceeded the movement that a large number of void vibrators could cause at the same time. Silence! At this moment, there was even an illusion that the entire vast and boundless star field was trembling under this sudden high-frequency buzzing. Immediately after, the mysterious wave energy that had completely gathered into one instantly poured out. Whoosh! The terrifying sound of breaking through the air, which was sharp enough to tear apart the sky, instantly made everyone temporarily deaf. This feeling was far more shocking than the deafening sound of the huge explosion. In the distance, countless intelligent robots widened their eyes. In front of the void in their line of sight, there was clearly an invisible tide that was like an ocean in the starry sky. With the Void Heavenly King's angry roar, it burst out and turned into an earth-shattering nothingness. In an instant, the power completely enveloped the vast void hundreds of millions of miles in front of the Void Heavenly King. Chilala! Boom! Rumble! The clear sound of ripping silk resounded like rain, and the vast void, which was hundreds of millions of kilometers away, was instantly torn apart inch by inch. A large amount of void turbulence shot out, and at some of the larger void cracks a large amount of void turbulence was even more direct. It formed a void vortex that looked like a black hole. The countless battleships and mechanical beasts that were originally in this area were crushed like paper under the impact of the endless storms raging in the void vortex. They were instantly reduced to ashes. To be more precise, the Void Heavenly Monarch had only let out a single roar of anger, but the Heaven's Legacy race had lost several billion battleships and mechanical war beasts. This scene was like the might of the heavens wreaking havoc. Anyone who saw this would tremble in fear. But the loss of several billion warships and mechanical beasts was nothing to the Heaven's Legacy race, whose mechanical army numbered more than 100 billion. The vast void that was cleared by the Void Heavenly King was quickly filled by a large number of mechanical beasts and battleships that swarmed in. Moreover, the Heaven's Legacy race's mechanical army began its counterattack. Boom! Rumble! Whoosh whoosh whoosh! Almost at the same time, countless earth-shattering roars resounded from all directions. All the mechanical beasts and battleships opened fire. Whoosh 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 and rumbling thunder resounded. Some opened the ship cannons, and countless ship cannons interweaved with energy beams. Some were the Heaven's Legacy race army in the form of battle beasts, shooting out sharp blades and spikes that covered their bodies, launching physical attacks. There were even some battle beasts that rapidly transformed into giant metal balls like meteors. With the power to destroy the heavens and earth, they rumbled over, launching a suicide attack. This kind of attack covered the sky and earth in all directions, stretching hundreds of billions of kilometers. It was majestic and terrifying. But Yi Xian's 3 Blood Sea clones were still towering and unmoving. His opponent was De, and he did not put this countless mechanical army in his eyes. Even the Void Heavenly Monarch, who had just let out an earth-shattering roar, retreated. And the one who stepped out at this time was the Blood Mosquito Heavenly Monarch. In the chest area of the Blood Mosquito Heavenly Monarch's body was the Blood Mosquito battle armor. The color of the Blood Mosquito battle armor was a dark red that leaned toward black like dried blood, giving people a very heavy feeling of oppression. There was indeed nothing unusual about the entire Blood Mosquito battle Hades. It was exactly the same as the other 3 battle Hades. However, the core node of the 9th circle on the inner side of the horn was different from the other thousands of beehive nodes. In front of this core node, the front half of this core node was densely packed with extremely sharp alloy spikes. At first glance, this core node was like a giant alloy porcupine. The core node had a diameter of 3,000 meters. Although only the side facing the mouth of the horn was covered with alloy spikes, the number of spikes was extremely shocking. They were too densely packed. After the last modification, the total number had exceeded 100 billion. And the hardness of these alloy spikes was also extremely shocking. They were several times harder than the main dragon bone material of the Starry Sky Fortress with a diameter of 100,000 meters. They were made by mixing some special mineral or crystal. Each spike was hundreds of meters long. If they were thrown out like battle spears with a certain speed, they could pierce through battleships, fortresses, and Starry Sky Fortresses. It was simply like playing around. These tens of millions of special alloy spikes were tailor-made by the forging system according to a certain characteristic of the mosquito race. Among the 4 battle armors in the 4 heavenly monarchs' bodies, the Void battle armor had the power of the Void, the Weeping Soul battle armor had the power of the Void, and the Time battle armor was even more terrifying. It could release the tide of time related to the universe's time law. The power of these 3 battle armors was invisible. The Void battle armor only had a void ripple, and the Weeping Soul battle armor only had a terrifying cry that could destroy the soul. The tide of time activated by the Time battle armor was actually a kind of invisible law power. Only when it exploded, there was a slight flash of golden light. Only the Blood Mosquito battle armor's attack should be related to the tens of millions of special alloy spikes. Among the 4 battle armors, it was the only one that had a physical attack mode. Roar! Whoosh whoosh whoosh! At this moment, as Heavenly Monarch Blood Mosquito took a step forward, he did not hesitate at all. He immediately raised his head and roared angrily. At the same time, countless densely packed tiny holes appeared in front of Heavenly Monarch Blood Mosquito's chest like a beehive. An invisible blood-colored mosquito spurted out of it, passing through the 3 Blood Sea clones and the huge body of Heavenly Monarch Blood Mosquito, and quickly radiated in all directions. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 4882. The Blood Mosquito War Raja had 2 attack modes, the normal mode and the array mode. In the normal mode, the War Raja gathered the unique biological frequency of millions of ferocious mosquito beasts to form a powerful attack. It could cause all approaching attacks, including conventional physical attacks and unconventional energy attacks, to instantly retreat. Moreover, it was a backtracking in the enhanced state, as if it was repelled by an invisible shockwave. While in the array mode the kinetic energy was the same, and there would also be an invisible shockwave formed. However, this attack mode had the addition of nearly 10 million special alloy spikes in front and on the side of the core beehive node. To put it bluntly, these special alloy spikes, with the unique enhanced power of the ferocious mosquito beast's biological frequency, were fired at the terrifying speed of ordinary naval cannons in one go. At this moment, as the blood mosquito Heavenly King stepped out, it raised its head and let out a shocking roar. In its chest, the intense high-frequency vibrating sound produced by the mosquito beasts flapping their wings instantly came out. The tens of millions of ferocious mosquito beasts inside the War Raja flapped their wings and roared at the same time. If they had not all restrained this high-frequency vibrating power and gathered together, gathering from the honeycomb nodes to the core node of the ninth ring, but spread out, this large area of the void would probably be disturbed and trembled violently at this moment. At this moment, if one could see the situation in the blood mosquito Heavenly King's chest, they would be able to see an invisible shockwave rushing out from the huge mouth of the blood mosquito War Raja. After the enhancement of the War Raja's special form, when it left the outer ring of the War Raja's largest diameter, this invisible shockwave had already blown out wrinkles in the void. It was extremely fast. When it shot out, a layer of invisible ripples similar to the fine fish scales on the water surface appeared in the void. In the blink of an eye, it had already traveled tens of millions of miles. It faced the energy beams of the naval cannons that were shooting from all directions, as well as countless mechanical beasts, and came into contact with them head-on. Whoosh! 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 At this moment, an incomparably sharp sound of breaking through the air suddenly rang out. Under the invisible and weak blood-colored ripples, all the naval cannon's energy beams or mechanical beasts that came into contact with it were actually, without exception, all of them paused abruptly. Then, as if they had been affected by some kind of stronger reverse thrust, they all turned around and shot back. Moreover, they were shooting back in a state of continuous acceleration, at least twice as fast as when they came. Only in less than half a second, they arrived at the battleships and fortresses that they had just shot out. Those mechanical war beasts that had transformed into giant metal balls that looked like meteors had destroyed countless battleships and mechanical war beasts on their way back. Boom! Boom! Rumble! All of this was too shocking. Caught off guard, almost no warship or mech war beast could avoid this strange bombardment. Go! Within 10 billion miles, all the battleships, fortresses, and mechanical beasts exploded, turning into giant fireballs that illuminated a corner of the void. It was as if a large number of stars had self-detonated. The power was earth-shattering. This with one strike, the area where the 5 half-step Heavenly Tao experts stood, within a radius of 10 billion kilometers, was instantly cleared. The number of battleships and mechanical war beasts destroyed in the Heavenly Legacy Race's mechanical army was even more shocking than when the Heavenly King of the Void had attacked earlier. There were at least 10 billion of them. All of this seemed to take a long time, but in reality it happened in just a few dozen breaths. In less than 15 minutes, Yixian's 3 Blood Sea clones did not even move a single step. From beginning to end, only the Heavenly King of the Void and the Heavenly King of the Blood Mosquito each took a step forward, raised their heads and roared. Then they each launched a large-scale attack. It was precisely because of these 2 attacks that the Heavenly Legacy Race's army, which had swarmed in from all directions as if intending to drown out the 5 half-step Heavenly Tao experts, had been instantly emptied of tens of billions of li of space in an instant. Twice in such a vast void. All the Heavenly Legacy Race battleships, fortresses, and various mechanical war beasts were destroyed without exception. Short in just 15 minutes, the losses were close to 20 billion wrong. The Heavenly Legacy Race's battleships and mechanical war beasts were indeed not real clansmen. Moreover, as if they did not cost money, they could have as many as they wanted. After all, in this vast star domain that spanned hundreds of billions of kilometers, countless abandoned planets had now been turned into the assembly lines of the Heavenly Legacy Race's battleships, fortresses, and mechanical war beasts. Now, in just a few dozen breaths, nearly 20 billion battleships, fortresses, and mechanical war beasts had been destroyed. This level of loss was still somewhat unbearable for them. Although the current Heavenly Legacy Race was far from what it had been in the past, it had only been less than 2 years since they arrived in this fragment of void. Their foundation was still somewhat shallow, and their foundation was not very rich. They definitely could not withstand this kind of terrifying loss. Moreover, they had paid such a heavy price, but this time only 2 of the 5 terrifying half-step Heavenly Tao existences had each taken a step forward, raised their heads and roared angrily. The 3 Blood Sea clones had not even made a move, and their figures did not even sway. This was even more embarrassing. Even if the Heavenly Legacy Race's clan leader, Dee, did not care at all about the loss of combat strength from these non-clansmen, when faced with such an awkward battle situation, he was afraid that he would not be able to hold himself back. It was impossible for him to continue calmly sitting on the fishing platform. Yixian was well aware of this point. The reason why he did not immediately search for Di Yi's whereabouts after arriving, and instead asked the Heavenly King of the Void and the Heavenly King of the Blood Mosquito to take action was because he had no other choice. Di Yi was a mechanical and electronic life form, not a living creature of flesh and blood. He did not have divine sense. Even if he used divine sense and spiritual power to search, he would not find anything. Moreover, he could even enter any mechanical or electronic device, which was really too unpredictable. Rather than spend the effort to search for him, it was better to let the Heavenly King of the Void and the Heavenly King of the Blood Mosquito use this kind of area of effect attack to wreak havoc in the entire Heavenly Legacy Race's base camp. This kind of method could force Di to show himself. Even if Di saw through Yixian's purpose, it did not matter. This was the Heavenly Legacy Race's base camp, and Di was the passive party. As long as he did not show himself, the Heavenly King of the Void and the Heavenly King of the Blood Mosquito would continue to wreak havoc. But, therefore, this was an overt scheme. Di had no choice but to give in sooner or later and be forced to show himself. Very obviously, Yixian's plan was correct, because after these 2 waves of terrifying attacks, a shocking roar suddenly came from the farthest part of the vast star field 200 to 300 billion kilometers away. Yixian's purpose had been achieved. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile reading website Chapter 4883. That's right. As the Heavenly King of the Void and the Heavenly King of the Blood Mosquito race made their moves one after another, they cleared the surrounding tens of billions of miles of void space twice in a short span of time, destroying close to 20 billion battleships, fortresses, and various mechanical beasts of the Heavenly Fate race. The Heavenly Fate race leader Di, who had been quiet all this while, could no longer sit still. He was forced to show himself. Roar! An earth-shattering roar suddenly came from the farthest part of the vast star domain 200 to 300 billion miles away. As this roar sounded, a ray of light shot over from the end of the line of sight. Speed was extremely fast. Along the way, countless Heavenly Fate race battleships, fortresses, and mechanical beasts of various shapes and sizes all moved aside, making a wide star path. In the blink of an eye, it was already 100 billion miles away from the other side. In the void space suddenly came to an abrupt stop. It was a gigantic mechanical planet that was 100 million miles in size. It was several times larger than Yixian's 3 Blood Sea clones. It was the core of the Heavenly Fate race that had been reborn and was far from what it used to be, the Heavenly Fate City. As the core of the Heavenly Fate race, the Heavenly Fate City already had 2 forms before the Heavenly Fate race moved away from the 3 main dimensions of the starry skies. 1. The first form was this gigantic mechanical planet battle form. It was like the largest star fortress that could move at will and was extremely agile. The second form was to transform into a mechanical planet in the void. That was the normal form. And now, after many years of modification by Di, in addition to the original 2 forms, the current Heavenly Fate City had 2 more battle head forms. They could transform into a demonic dragon and a demonic phoenix. Buzz Kachacha at this moment. As the Heavenly Fate City rumbled over, the metal ball that had stopped abruptly in the void space 100 billion miles ahead seemed to come alive. An extremely low buzzing sound suddenly came from within. It was also accompanied by densely packed clicking sounds, as if countless mechanical gears were rotating and grinding together. Moreover, as the clicking sounds came from all directions, this gigantic metal ball was also rapidly changing form. There were some protrusions extending from every part of the sphere. In less than half a breath, it had turned into a green-black demonic dragon. Its body was extremely large, nearly 200 million kilometers long. Compared to the size of the sphere from before, even Yixian, who was in the 9th transformation of the 9 transformations of the devil ape, was several times smaller than it. What was even stranger was that this greenish-black demonic dragon was also emitting a dazzling metallic luster. This was clearly a metallic demonic dragon made of synthetic metals. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Almost as soon as the demonic metal dragon appeared, Countless ear-piercing sounds rang out in the void hundreds of millions of miles away in front of them. Looking up from the ferocious and incomparably huge bloody mouth of the demonic metal dragon, suddenly beams of light rushed out one after another. Their momentum was majestic, and their number was overwhelming. There were at least 10 million of them. This scene was like the demonic dragon spitting out pearls, beautiful and magnificent. And these beams of light that came out of the demonic dragon's mouth were initially small metal balls. Their surfaces were suffused with metallic luster of different colors, but very soon, these extremely small metal balls came to an abrupt stop in the void. Similarly, there was also a low buzzing sound and the clicking sound of machinery grinding together coming from within. Ling! A shocking scene appeared. Accompanied by these strange sounds, the shape of the metal balls also rapidly changed. In just a short span of a dozen breaths, they had transformed into different forms of space beasts. Their bodies were tens of millions of miles long, as big as small stars. As for their forms, without exception, they were all strange and ferocious. More than 10 million huge mechanical beasts, each with different characteristics of a beast. Their surfaces were suffused with a faint metallic luster, as if they were mechanical beasts of different forms. In this void that was hundreds of billions of miles away where the Tianji clan's base was located, there was originally a large number of mechanical beasts, so many that it was impossible to count. Just the two attacks from Void Sky Emperor and Blood Mosquito Sky Emperor had destroyed close to 2 million Tianji clan battle forces, and there were at least a few billion different forms of mechanical beasts. These mechanical beasts that appeared now were completely different from those mechanical beasts. This is more than 10 million mechanical beasts, and the auras they emitted from their bodies were incomparably terrifying. They were at least at the Emperor level or above, and basically they were all at the Emperor level. And some of the even larger beings emitted auras that were at the Universe Supreme level, Universe Master level, and Universe Supreme level. No, that's not right. These 10 million mechanical beasts were the official members of the Tianji clan that truly possessed electronic consciousness. Just like D.D.R. and the 100 million or so members of the Tianji clan under D.R., they were all true mechanical electronic life forms. At this very moment, as these 10 million mechanical beasts changed their forms and appeared, the countless battleships, fortresses, and mechanical beasts in the surrounding void quietened down. They gathered into various mechanical armies, but they didn't dare to approach. Instead, they all retreated to the periphery of the void 100 billion miles away. While within the inner void of the 100 billion miles, Yixian's 5 bodies stood in the central region. That's right. On the other side, over 10 million automaton battle beasts of varying sizes, all over 10 million miles in size, all at least at the Emperor level Undying level, were gathered together malevolently, occupying a huge space as they spread out. In the center of this terrifying army of mechanical battle beasts, a black metallic demonic dragon that was 200 million miles long was hovering in the void. Its body was moving slowly, emitting a formless pressure. Although it was extremely obscure, it wasn't any weaker than any of the 5 bodies of Yixian in the void. It was obvious that the metal demon dragon's cultivation level had reached the 9th stage supreme level of the primordial great being. Furthermore, considering that the metal demon dragon was originally formed from the Tianji city, its internal space was vast and boundless like a small world. Therefore, there was definitely more than one body of DE in its body. Therefore, although the cultivation level aura emitted from the metal demon dragon was at the 9th stage supreme level of the primordial great being, it definitely didn't represent just one half-step heavenly being. There were at least a few of them. Because of this, when the master of the magic hall, Yixian, arrived in the Tianji clan star sector, 5 half-step heavenly being bodies lined up in a row. DE, who was hibernating in the metal demon dragon's body, clearly didn't show the slightest bit of fear. No, in fact, within the pressure emitted from the metal demon dragon's body, there was even an extremely cold and ruthless aura. It was as though it wanted to devour someone, causing one's heart to tremble in fear. Roar! At this moment, 100 billion miles away, the black metal demon dragon that was 200 million miles long suddenly raised its head and let out a furious roar. Its aura was too violent, and an invisible force was wreaking havoc. Within a few 100 million miles, a large number of stars exploded. This power shocked the world and caused it to tremble slightly. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 4884. Roar. These two mantis-wing battle beasts should be the products of that mantis-wing beast from the mechanical clan after being decomposed by you, right? At this time, as the Tianji city descended, it transformed into a giant black dragon formed for battle. Then, it spat out more than 10 million real Tianji clan members from its mouth and transformed into different forms of mechanical battle beasts. Dai's voice murmured after a shocking roar. After a complete decomposition, you can still maintain the peak Desolate Supremacy battle strength of a Supreme Desolate Supremacy at the peak of Supreme Desolate Realm 9th stage. It seems that you have integrated new elements. From the two bombardments just now, it seems a little familiar. It's similar to the attacks of the 4 Starry Sky battle claws in your hands. If I'm not mistaken, you should have integrated a battle claw into the bodies of these two mantis-winged battle beasts, giving them new attack abilities. Not bad. From this, it can be seen that your electronic doppelganger is indeed extraordinary. In such a short time you can improve so much. No wonder you could swallow one of Air's mantis-winged beasts. Unfortunately, even so, you only have the battle strength of 5 Supreme Desolate Supremacies at the peak of Supreme Desolate Supremacy. With this little strength, you dare to come to my Tianji clan's base camp and behave atrociously. You are too confident. Screech, rumble, ka-cha-cha. After the last sentence, Deer suddenly roared, and a surge of murderous aura rushed toward them. The entire vast and boundless void trembled slightly because of this. This was followed by the earth-shattering rumble of thunder, and the incomparably crisp sound of machinery grinding together. Boom! 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 Looking over, the black mechanical demon dragon in front of them, which was 200 million miles long, actually began to disintegrate at this moment. Advance! The disintegration was very fast. In less than 3 breaths, the mechanical demon dragon had divided into 6 sections. However, this was not the end. After the mechanical demon dragon was divided into 6 sections, each section was more than 30 million miles long. However, this was clearly not the limit. The crackling sounds continued to echo in the air as a large number of tentacles and limbs rapidly extended out from the 6 segments of the black demonic dragon's body. Even its body was expanding at a rapid pace. Yet again, 3 breaths later, the mechanical demon dragon's body was completely different from before in the blink of an eye. The 6 parts of their bodies had all turned into enormous mechanical beasts. Each of them was 50 million miles long, and they all stood on their hind legs like 6 giant mechanical bears. However, they all had extremely sharp alloy wings on their backs. In addition, there were some parts of their enormous bodies that were slightly different from each other. More, what was shocking was that before it disintegrated, the black demon dragon that was 200 million miles in size emitted the aura of a 9th stage Desolate Supremacy. Yet now, after the black demonic dragon had disintegrated into 6 mechanical battle beasts that were 50 million miles in size, its cultivation aura was actually not weakened in the slightest. The 6 mechanical war beasts with huge mechanical wings on their backs emitted cultivation auras that were all at the peak of the 9th step of the Desolate Sovereign. Any one of them wasn't any weaker than Yi Xian's 5 clones. Only just based on this point, it was enough to prove that Di's Tianji clan had at least 6 9th-stage Desolate Supremacy peak experts, and all of them were his avatars. Even this was most likely not the limit. Di had always been extremely cunning. According to Yi Xian's speculation, it was impossible for him to reveal all of his trump cards now. This, although Yi Xian had expected this result, now that it had become reality, after seeing it with his own eyes, he felt different. No, not to mention, even Yi Xian felt a strong sense of pressure when facing these 6 mechanical battle bears that were at the 9th stage Desolate Supremacy peak. Although he wasn't afraid of fighting 5 against 6, this trip to the Heaven's Legacy race today would lose its meaning. This time he had come in anger. Although the Void Heavenly King and the Blood Mosquito Heavenly King had attacked twice, destroying nearly 20 billion Tianji clan battleships, star fortresses, and various mechanical battle beasts. However, to De, those existences were as many as he wanted. They were far from being real Tianji clan members. Such as if he came in anger and only made such a small commotion before retreating, that would be too much of a tiger's head and a snake's tail. Not only would he become a laughingstock, it wouldn't be in line with Yi Xian's temper. He would probably be depressed to death, yes, The 6 DE avatars in front of him all had the cultivation of the 9th stage Desolate Supremacy peak. If Yixian wanted to kill them, he would have to use the Fallen Sky Bow and other powerful magical powers. Otherwise, even if he used the Shenong 9-colored flame and turned it into a sea of flames, he would not be able to kill one of them. After all, the current situation was 6 against 5, and the other side still had the advantage in terms of numbers. These thoughts flashed through his mind, and Yixian immediately made a decision. If it was 5 against 6, anyway, he would not have any advantage. Since that was the case, he might as well fight 3 against 6. 3. The Great Blood Sea Avatar fought against De's 2 mechanical avatars. Although he did not have the advantage, with the 9-colored flame sea in Yixian's hands, the power of the Shenong Cauldron and the treasured pestle, he could still grit his teeth and ensure that he was not injured. If this way, the remaining 2 mechanical avatars, namely Heavenly King Void and Heavenly King Blood Mosquito, could be free to deal with other targets besides De's 6 great avatars. If Yixian's target naturally could not be the warships, fortresses, and ordinary mechanical beasts gathered in the surrounding void 100 billion miles away. Void Heavenly King Void and Heavenly King Blood Mosquito's target was the more than 10 million official members of the Tianji clan surrounding De's 6 great avatars. It should be known that the mechanical clan had more than 100 million official members. After losing more than 30 million in the battle outside the Rising Forbidden Land, D was on the verge of collapse. If there were only slightly more than 10 million official members of the Tianji clan, with the strength of Heavenly King Void and Heavenly King Blood Mosquito, if they suddenly attacked, killing 2 to 3 million in a short time was no problem at all. Even if it was only 2 to 3 million, it was definitely an unbearable burden for DE. Moreover, Heavenly King Void and Heavenly King Blood Mosquito were both Yixian's electronic avatars. Against these official members of the Tianji clan with electronic life, it was not as simple as killing them. They could completely devour while fighting. If this way, this trip to the Tianji Star Zone would be perfect. Not only would they vent their anger, but they would also devour a large number of electronic life forms of the mechanical clan. This was definitely a wonderful thing that killed 2 birds with 1 stone. Moreover, if Heavenly King Void and Heavenly King Blood Mosquito could really devour 2 to 3 million official members of the Tianji clan this time, not only would DE probably go crazy with anger, but it would also be a heavy blow to the Tianji clan. At least they would not be able to catch their breath for a period of time. In this way, when Yixian subsequently attacked the Heavenly Dao Alliance, the Star Alliance, and the Alliance of 10,000 Tribes, he would no longer have to worry about the Tianji clan playing tricks behind his back and taking advantage of the opportunity to launch a sneak attack on the Magic Hall. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 4885. Roar. Roar. Screech. After making the decision, Yixian's 3 Blood Sea avatars immediately raised their heads and let out earth-shattering roars and howls. Their murderous auras soared into the sky, and even the void trembled a few times because of it. In the next moment, the 3 Blood Sea avatars, the Void Heavenly King, and the Blood Mosquito Heavenly King rushed out at the same time. The 5 huge figures turned into 5 rays of light, and their speed was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, they had already traversed billions of miles of void. Boom! Rumble. In the distance, DE's 6 mechanical avatars, who were lined up in a row in the void, also rushed out at the same time. The aura in their bodies was extremely violent, and they attacked Yixian's 5 avatars head-on. This battle, no one can escape. I'll beat you until you explode. Roar. Whoosh. Huff. Seeing this scene, a dark light flashed in the depths of the violent ape's eyes. It raised its head and roared angrily. Before its voice fell, it had already waved its hand, and a 9-colored light shot out. As it soared in the wind, it had already turned into an endless sea of flames in just half a breath. A strange sound like the howling of a violent wind could be heard. The 9-colored sea of flames that had just descended instantly spread out in all directions. Speed was too fast. In the blink of an eye, it was endless, enveloping the vast void within a radius of tens of billions of miles. In a flash, it directly turned into a ball like a giant star in the shape of a flame. The interior of the star was hollow. Yixian's 5 avatars were all inside, including DE's 6 mechanical avatars. Caught off guard, they were all enveloped and trapped. A few moments later, at the same time DE's voice rang out, reverberating endlessly within this giant fireball that was like a star. It's useless. Although your 9-colored sea of flames is terrifying, I have 6 mechanical avatars of the 9th stage great perfection here, and you only have 5 avatars. Even if you use the power of the 9-colored sea of flames, you can't do anything to me. Not to mention killing me, you can't even seriously injure me. Yi Xian, in this battle, you won't be able to gain the slightest advantage. You are destined to return with your tail between your legs. Ha ha ha. In the end, Di Yi's 6 mechanical avatars all laughed strangely. The sound was ear-piercing, as if machines were grinding the ears, making people extremely uncomfortable. Indeed. Before the strange laughter fell, Yi Xian's words came out of the violent ape's mouth. However, since we can't gain the upper hand, then let's play a little bigger. Let's go 3 against 6. My 3 Bloodsea avatars will take on 2 of your avatars separately. Whoosh! Whoosh! The Heavenly King and Heavenly King Blood, Heavenly King, Heavenly King, Heavenly King, Heavenly King, Heavenly King, Heavenly King. His speed was too fast. In the blink of an eye, he was already close to the flame screen behind him. At this time, 2 passageways automatically appeared on the 9-colored flame screen that completely sealed off this void space. They were both about 50 million miles long, just enough for the Heavenly King of the Void and the Heavenly King of the Blood Mosquito to pass through. This was done deliberately by Yi Xian. He had been prepared for this. Therefore, the Void Heavenly King and the Blood Mosquito Heavenly King were extremely fast. The 9-colored flame screen behind them also coordinated perfectly. Wink, in the blink of an eye, the figures of the Heavenly King of the Void and the Heavenly King of the Blood Mosquito had already disappeared, and the 2 huge holes that appeared on the 9-colored flame screen were instantly closed. Originally, with the cultivation and strength of Di Yi's 6 avatars, if they had been prepared, they could have followed behind Heavenly King of the Void and Heavenly King Blood Mosquito and rushed out in a flash. However, all of this was caught off guard. By the time Di Yi realized that something was wrong, it was already too late. His 6 avatars only shook slightly, and the 2 passages on the 9-colored flame screen had already disappeared. The reason why Yi Xian's 3 Bloodsea clones did not use this method to rush out was because Yi Xian's 3 Bloodsea clones did not use this method. It was to ensure that Heavenly King Void and Heavenly King Blood Mosquito were successful. No. In that case, if there were no 3 Bloodsea avatars to cover and restrain Di Yi's 6 Bloodsea avatars would definitely be able to react in time when Heavenly King of the Void and Heavenly King Blood Mosquito rushed out. At this time, Heavenly King of the Void and Heavenly King Blood Mosquito successfully rushed out, and Yi Xian's purpose was achieved. Until regarding the 3 Bloodsea avatars, he had never thought of using this method to rush out, because it was completely impossible. Once there was any change, Di would immediately be alerted. If 1 or 2 of his 6 avatars took this opportunity to rush out, then all of his previous efforts would be wasted. Matter in fact, Yi Xian did not intend to let the 3 Bloodsea avatars rush out. He had to fight head-on with Di Yi's strongest avatar, and he could take this opportunity to test his strength. Therefore, even if it was 1 against 2, Yi Xian would definitely not miss this opportunity and give up. Roar! 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 Damn it, I fell into a trap. Yi Xian, what do you want? At this time, as Heavenly King of the Void and Heavenly King Blood Mosquito retreated, they disappeared in the blink of an eye, leaving the sealed space formed by the 9-colored flame sea. Yes. On the other side, Di finally realized that something was wrong. The 6 mechanical avatars, each as large as 50 million miles, raised their heads and roared at the same time. Their auras were too violent. The earth-shattering roar was sealed in a fixed space. If the 9-colored flame sea did not have the property of buffering and absorbing energy, this huge flame ball would have exploded at this time. It's nothing. Heavenly King of the Void and Heavenly King Blood Mosquito have nothing to do anyway. It's a good opportunity to go out and meet your more than 10 million official members of the Qianji clan. His wild roar hadn't finished when the violent ape had already spoken, but its tone revealed an extremely pleased feeling, and it spoke lightly as if it was speaking of a trivial matter. Of course, if there's a chance, it's also fine to madly devour them while we're at it. After all, Heavenly King of the Void and Heavenly King Blood Mosquito are also electronic life forms. When they encounter similar existences, it should be relatively smooth for them to devour. The only pity is that your official members of the Tianji clan seem to be a little too few. There are only 10 million of them. It doesn't sound too easy to devour. Roar! 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 As soon as he finished speaking, the 3 Blood Sea avatars raised their heads and roared at the same time. Shock! At the same time, the Blood Sea avatar Bao Yuan flipped his huge palm, and a big black stick appeared in his right hand. The skeleton avatar on the side also laughed strangely. With a flip of his hand, he actually took out the Shenong treasured cauldron. He held one of the 3 legs of the cauldron upside down with one hand, raised it above his head, and directly swung it. As for the last black fog avatar, with a flash of light in his eyes, his entire body disappeared in an instant. Again, when he appeared again, he was already behind one of Di's 6 mechanical avatars. Without any hesitation, he immediately swung his fist and fiercely punched out. Boom! 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 This punch directly hit the back of this mechanical avatar, and an earth-shattering explosion followed. And this punch also opened the curtains of the great battle. Di's 6 mechanical avatars and Yixian's 3 Blood Sea avatars instantly fell into a crazy chaotic battle. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 4886. Roar! Screech! Amidst the furious roar, Yixian's 3 Blood Sea doppelgangers moved at the same time. One carried the big-headed black cudgel, one carried the Shenong treasured cauldron, and one disappeared like a ghost, directly appearing behind one of Di's doppelgangers. Boom! Rumble! A punch blasted out, directly smashing into the back of this mechanical doppelganger, and an earth-shattering explosion followed. It was this punch that opened the curtains to the great battle. Di's 6 mechanical doppelgangers and Yixian's 3 Blood Sea doppelgangers were instantly caught in a frenzied and chaotic battle. As soon as it began, it was already in full swing at the same time. Outside the sealed space formed by the 9-colored fireball, in the core of the star domain where the Tianji clan was located, without Di's orders, regardless of whether it was the ocean-like sea of battleships, fortresses, and ordinary mechanical beast army that had gathered 100 billion miles away. Still, it was the more than 10 million official members of the Tianji clan who had gathered in this void within 100 billion miles of this area that had transformed into advanced mechanical beasts. Without exception, there were no abnormal movements at all. Originally, if there were no accidents, the following battle had nothing to do with them at all. Di's 6 mechanical doppelgangers were fighting against Yixian's 5 doppelgangers. These official members of the Tianji clan and countless battleships were simply not qualified to participate in the battle. The only thing they could do was to stand around the battlefield and watch from the sidelines. But now, as Yixian's 2 electronic doppelgangers, namely the Heavenly King of the Void and the Heavenly King of the Blood Mosquito, rushed out of the 9-colored fireball at lightning speed, all of this was clearly changed in an instant. Whoosh! Whoosh! An incomparably sharp sound broke through the air. Suddenly 2 weak rays of light shot out from a corner of the gigantic 9-colored fireball that was tens of billions of miles in diameter. These 2 rays of light were the Heavenly King of the Void and the Heavenly King of the Blood Mosquito. They were extremely weak at first, but as soon as they appeared, they surged with the wind and abruptly stopped in the void in less than a breath's time. They were actually 2 mantis-winged warbeasts that were 50 million miles in size. Roar! Freak! As their figures appeared, Void Heavenly King and Blood Mosquito Heavenly King suddenly raised their heads and let out a shocking roar. Then, with a flash of cold light in their eyes, they rushed toward the more than 10 million official members of the Tianji clan gathered 10 billion miles away. In the blink of an eye, they were already in front of them. At this sight, the 10 million some official members of the Heaven's Legacy race gathered in the void 10 billion li away were struck dumb. Even though there were many of them, over 10 million of them, and their strength was extraordinary. Even the weakest was an emperor, however. Even the most powerful beings were only at the universe supreme level. This was normal. As the clan leader of the Tianji clan, Di had spent almost all of his energy on forging his doppelganger and improving his cultivation. Even when he had some free time, he would spend it commanding the 10,000 some members of the Heaven's Legacy race to develop as many warships, fortresses, and ordinary mechanical warbeasts as possible, constantly increasing the overall strength of the Heaven's Legacy race. Of course, it wasn't as if he didn't spend a lot of effort to help the 10 million official clansmen with electronic lifeforms forge their bodies, constantly improving and improving their strength. However, he obviously didn't spend much of his energy on this level, because, in his opinion, there was no need to make all of the 10,000 some official clansmen into desolate supreme-level beings like himself. On one hand, it was impossible. The 10,000 some official clansmen were too large, and it was impossible to find such a large amount of top-grade forging materials. On the other hand, it was also completely unnecessary. Under certain circumstances, when it was necessary to improve the strength of the 10,000 some official clansmen, he could transform into 10 million clansmen and integrate himself into the bodies of the 10,000 some official clansmen. This way their strength would naturally improve. However, even DE would never have thought that such a situation would occur. He, as the clan leader, he was trapped by a huge fireball formed by the 9-colored flame sea, and the 10,000 some official members of the Heaven's Legacy race under his command were all left outside the 9-colored flame sea. Today, the most powerful of the 10,000 some official clansmen was only Universe Supreme level. They didn't even have the strength of a primordial great being, and they had lost DE's unified command. This when the 10,000 some official clansmen faced Heavenly King Void and Heavenly King Blood Mosquito, who were two terrifying beings whose battle strength had reached the peak of the 9th level of the Desolate Supremacy. It was no different from a newborn lamb meeting a fierce tiger coming down from the mountain. The 10,000 some official clansmen of the Heaven's Legacy race gathered in the void ahead were clearly aware of this point. They were not ordinary mechanical beasts that were hibernating in the void 100 billion miles away. They were official clansmen of the Heaven's Legacy race. They were mechanical electronic life forms like D&D air. They were beings with intelligence, self-consciousness, and thoughts. Just as because of this, when they saw Heavenly King Void and Heavenly King Blood Mosquito suddenly appear and rush toward the place where the army was gathered, the 10,000 some official clansmen of the Heaven's Legacy race were momentarily stunned. Then all of their bodies shook violently. They raised their heads and roared and howled, revealing endless panic and fear. Pung! Hong long long. It was only a distance of more than 10 billion miles in the void. For Heavenly King Void and Heavenly King Blood Mosquito, who had the peak of the 9th level of the Desolate Supremacy, it was not a problem at all. Following that, they activated the power in their bodies with all their strength and advanced forward. In less than 2 breaths, they had already rushed to the front of the Heaven's Legacy race army. What happened next was no longer suspenseful. The 10,000 some official clansmen of the Heaven's Legacy race, who had originally gathered together, scattered at the first moment. Like stray dogs, they wished they could immediately grow wings and fly away from this void, escaping without a trace. Void Heavenly King Void and Heavenly King Blood Mosquito attacked at the same time. This time they did not activate the Void Battle Claws and Blood Mosquito Battle Claws that had merged into their bodies and were located at their chests. Instead, they directly attacked with a pair of incomparably hard alloy fists and the pair of sharp mantis wings on their backs. An earth-shattering rumble rang out, and a corner of the void trembled violently. This was a one-sided massacre. A large number of mechanical beasts exploded, but they did not have time to turn into fireballs. Immediately after, they were swallowed by the Heavenly King of the Void and the Heavenly King of the Blood Mosquito in the first instant. This scene looked exactly the same as a real battle between ferocious beasts. Although Heavenly King Void and Heavenly King Blood Mosquito only swallowed the bodies of these mechanical beasts that were made of cosmic alloys and the flesh and blood of some primordial creatures. However, in fact, their electronic consciousnesses were also in these bodies. Even if they were scattered after being swallowed, they could be pulled out by Heavenly King Void and Heavenly King Blood Mosquito and directly refined. And this kind of refinement to these official clansmen of the Heaven's Legacy race was the disappearance of consciousness, was a true death. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 4887. Pung. Pung pung. Hong long long. Heavenly King Kong and Heavenly King Blood Mosquito attacked at the same time, using a pair of extremely hard alloy fists and the pair of razor-sharp mantis wings on their backs to attack. Thunder rumbled continuously, and a corner of the void space trembled violently. This was definitely a one-sided massacre. Large amounts of automaton battle beasts exploded, but they didn't have time to become fireballs. They were immediately swallowed by Heavenly King Void and Heavenly King Blood Mosquito. They were refined and their consciousnesses were extinguished. From then on, they were completely annihilated. Of these 10 million official members of the Tianji clan, the strongest was only a universe supreme. There wasn't even a single ancient being. Speaking of which, to put it bluntly, to Heavenly King Void and Heavenly King Blood Mosquito, they weren't even ants. In just one attack, in less than 10 breaths, Heavenly King Void and Heavenly King Blood Mosquito had swallowed 500,000 to 600,000 each. Together, they had swallowed more than 1 million, which was equivalent to 1/10 of the Tianji clan army. And this was because they had to be devoured bit by bit after the slaughter. Otherwise, if it was just a simple slaughter, not even a third of the 10 million official members of the Heaven's Legacy race would be left alive in 10 breaths of time. Yixian had previously set his target at around 2 to 3 million because of this reason. One more than 10 million official members of the Heaven's Legacy race didn't sound like a lot, but if they weren't immediately devoured after being killed, the scattered electronic consciousnesses in their bodies would quickly dissipate. In this case, it would be a complete waste and it was clearly not desirable. Even if they were willing to kill slowly and kill less, they had to ensure that they swallowed as much as they killed. God, it was worth it to escape. At least they would have a chance to swallow again next time. And in this space fragment of the void space, only D Air's Automaton clan and D Yi's Tianji clan could be found. There wasn't a third party. Yixian's electronic bodies, which were the 4 heavenly kings, had long viewed them as future resources to be swallowed. Sooner or later they would be swallowed. Hence they would rather let them go than waste. Pung hong long in the air, the earth-shattering sounds continued, not stopping for even a moment. The space within 100 billion li of the sphere of flame had been transformed into a mechanical hell. The 10 million members of the Heaven's Legacy race fled in all directions, but the Heavenly Kings of Void and Blood Mosquito race were calmly chasing after them. Oh God, perhaps even a real hunt wouldn't be as easy and relaxed as this. Their speed wasn't fast. They just strolled through the void and killed a handful of them. Then they immediately opened their bloody mouths and swallowed them on the spot, completely refining them at the first moment. Some of them were made of cosmic alloys and the flesh and blood of ancient creatures. After refining them, they could fuse with the user and increase the strength of the body. As for the electronic consciousnesses that were scattered in these damaged mechanical bodies, they were directly refined by the electronic consciousnesses of the Heavenly King of the Void and the Heavenly King of the Blood Mosquito. They were absorbed as if they were devoured, strengthening their own electronic consciousnesses. In short, there was no wastage at all. In the blink of an eye, dozens of breaths had passed. Because these 10 million official members of the Heaven's Legacy race had scattered and fled, the density of their scattering in the void had decreased sharply. Therefore, although the Heavenly King of the Void and the Heavenly King of the Blood Mosquito race hadn't stopped for a moment, the two of them had only devoured about 600,000 or 700,000 each. Plus together, they had also devoured more than 1.5 million. If one were to include the 1 million that they had devoured earlier, from the beginning until now, the total number of official members of the Heaven's Legacy race that the Heavenly King of the Void and the Heavenly King of the Blood Mosquito race had already exceeded 3 million. The official members of the Heaven's Legacy race had only 13 million in total. Now more than 3 million had been devoured in just half an incense stick's time. The remaining members were only 10 million dead. The loss of more than 20% was simply disastrous. Yes, at this time the remaining 10 million official members had basically spread out in all directions. They could be seen everywhere in the vast void where the 9-colored sphere of flame was located. Even more, some had already rushed out of the range of this 100 billion li and merged into the sea of battleships, star fortresses, and ordinary mechanical beasts gathered in the outer circle. Such as in this way, it was obviously not realistic to want to devour a large number of them efficiently. However, no matter how small a mosquito's leg was, it was still meat. Even if it was nibbling away bit by bit, the Heavenly King of the Void and the Heavenly King of the Blood Mosquito race wouldn't dislike it, let alone easily let go of such an opportunity. Roar! Screech! After each raised their heads and let out a wild roar, the Heavenly King of the Void and the Heavenly King of the Blood Mosquito race shook their shoulders and rushed to the left and right in an instant, once again launching a frenzied devouring. At the same time, in the sealed space of the 9-colored sphere of flame that was tens of billions of li in diameter, Everything outside the sealed space of the sphere took a long time to describe, but in fact it happened in just half an incense stick's time. If one counted carefully, it was less than 100 breaths from beginning to end. But it was in this less than 100 breaths that the original 13 million official members of the Heaven's Legacy race had been reduced to 10 million. They had lost more than 3 million, more than 20%, and nearly 30%. As the patriarch of the Heaven's Legacy race, Dee naturally sensed all of this at the first moment. Although the nine-colored sea of flame had completely sealed off this vast void with a radius of tens of billions of li, this kind of seal was aimed at flesh and blood bodies, or the alloy shells of the Heaven's Legacy race, and other objects. Even the consciousness and soul power of flesh and blood creatures could be sealed by more than half, suppressing a large area. However, the Heaven's Legacy race was different. Their electronic consciousness had a unique frequency. On a certain level, it was actually somewhat similar to the ever-changing and endless frequency of the insect race's insect race. Although the nine-colored sea of flame could suppress it, it couldn't completely block it. Positive because of this, as the patriarch of the Heaven's Legacy race, Dee naturally knew everything that happened in the outside world, no matter how big or small. One thinking about how in less than 100 breaths of time, he had lost more than 3 million of the official members of the Tianji clan under his command, leaving only 10 million dead, he immediately felt a kind of crazy hatred, almost to the point of going berserk. Roar! Roar, roar, roar! Yi Xian, you damned guy, you will definitely pay for everything that happened today. At this moment, Di Yi's 6 mechanical doppelgangers raised their heads almost at the same time and let out a series of shocking roars, which revealed endless resentment and anger. Before the roars had died down, one of the mechanical doppelgangers suddenly turned around and rushed toward the flame screen on the right. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 4888. In less than 100 breaths of time, the 13 million official members of the Celestial Legacy race had been reduced to 10 million. They had lost more than 3 million, more than 20%, and almost 30%. As the clan leader of the Tianji clan, Dee naturally sensed all of this immediately. Roar! Roar! Yi Xian, you damned guy, you will definitely pay the price for everything that has happened today. Furious Dee's 6 mechanical avatars raised their heads at the same time and let out earth-shattering roars. Their roars were filled with endless resentment and anger. The 9-colored fireball that enveloped a radius of tens of billions of miles shook slightly because of this. After all, the roars of 6 half-step Heavenly Dao experts were too powerful. Swoosh! In the next instant, before the roars from the 9-colored fireball had died down, one of the mechanical avatars suddenly turned around and charged toward the flame screen on the right. Seeing this, a cold light flashed in Bao Yuan's eyes. He immediately rushed out to intercept it. Although Yi Xian did not know what Di Yi's mechanical avatar was going to do, such a sudden and unexpected action at such a critical moment was definitely not a good thing. Di had always been crafty, and the mechanical avatar that suddenly rushed out was a half-step Heavenly Dao existence at the supreme primordial level 9 perfection. No matter how one looked at it, Yi Xian had to be on guard. Where are you going? Huff? Rumble. With a roar, Yi Xian flipped his right hand, and the big-headed black cudgel that he was dragging behind him was suddenly raised high above his head and smashed forward ruthlessly. The power was so fierce that the rumbling of thunder came from the void. The aura swept out and it was a shocking sight. At this moment, Di Yi's mechanical avatar happened to be inside the 9-colored fireball on the right. It was only about 100 million miles away from the 9-colored flame screen. What was strange was that as Bao Yuan's staff fell, the mechanical doppelganger that was originally moving at extreme speed, as if it wanted to take the risk of forcibly passing through the flame screen, suddenly turned its head and looked over. At the same time, he stopped abruptly and even grinned at Yi Xian. Boom! At this moment, Bao Yuan frowned and felt that something was wrong. However, he did not stop what he was doing. He swung the big-headed black stick high above his head and smashed it on the shoulder of Di Yi's mechanical doppelganger as if it was falling from the sky. An earth-shattering boom was heard. According to Yi Xian's estimation, even if the stick hit a solid target, it would only make Di Yi's mechanical avatar stagger in the void and be slightly injured. However, this was obviously not the case. At the same time that the earth-shattering boom was heard, Di Yi's mechanical doppelganger completely exploded. the terrifying body that was 50 million miles wide completely collapsed and turned into a huge fireball. It smashed hard on the 9-colored flame screen on the right side of De's body. Everything happened too fast. In addition, this kind of action was really inconsistent with common sense. No one would be able to react in time. Self-destruction? Seeing this scene, Yixian instantly understood. Bao Yuan's expression changed and he cried out in alarm. His stick was indeed not enough to directly blow up De's mechanical doppelganger. The only explanation for this situation was that it had self-destruction. De's original purpose was this, and Bao Yuan's stick only increased the power of his mechanical doppelganger self-destruction by 10%. Whoosh whoosh. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The howling of the wind rose to the sky. As De's mechanical doppelganger self-destructed, it turned into a huge fireball. The 9-colored flame screen on the right side of De's body instantly rolled up violently. A crack that was 100 million miles wide appeared. Although it was only for half a breath, this crack was closed because of the stability of the 9-colored flame screen. However, in this half a breath or so, there were already 6 rays of light that rushed out from the flickering crack at an extremely fast speed. 5 of them were the other 5 mechanical doppelgangers of De, and the last one rushed out from this mechanical doppelganger that had exploded. Obviously, the electronic consciousness that De had hibernated in this body did not disappear because of the self-destruction and escaped. Roar! Roar! Seeing this scene, Bao Yuan, the skeleton doppelganger, and the black fog doppelganger raised their heads at the same time and let out earth-shattering roars. They had been too careless. In a moment of carelessness, De had escaped with such a trick. Originally, this situation would not have happened. However, although the 9-colored flame sea was boundless and endless, it had now turned into a round fireball that enveloped the void space of tens of billions of miles. It was really too vast, which directly caused the flame screen of the fireball to not be very thick. In this way, in addition to De gritting his teeth and abandoning a mechanical doppelganger that he had meticulously built and whose cultivation had reached the perfection of the 9th-rank desolate supremacy, the power of his self-destruction was terrifying. Finally, the 9-colored flame screen, which was not very thick to begin with, was temporarily blown open. Although the crack appeared for a very short time, only half a breath, De had done this deliberately. However, De had done all of this on purpose. He had already made full preparations. Even if it was just a split second, it was enough for his mechanical doppelgangers to take the opportunity to rush out. And with De's escape, Yixian's previous plan was obviously interrupted. Before this, the Heavenly King of the Void and the Heavenly King of the Blood Mosquito had, in less than 100 breaths, devoured more than 3 million of the original 13 million official members of the Tianji clan, causing them to be reduced to only 10 million members. The loss was huge, more than 20%, close to 30%. Even Yixian was quite surprised by this result. In his heart, he was secretly delighted. He had originally planned to expand the result of the battle as much as possible, greatly increasing the original target of devouring about 2 million to about 5 million. In this way, the loss of the Tianji clan would be so great that it was almost comparable to the loss of the mechanical clan under De Air. It was absolutely so disastrous that it was almost unbearable. But now it was obvious that all this could not be realized. In fact, the reason why De did not hesitate to self-destruct a mechanical doppelganger was to prevent this from happening. Now that his trick had succeeded, even if Yixian was unwilling, he could only helplessly accept his fate. Huff! At this moment, as De's 5 mechanical doppelgangers and an electronic consciousness that had lost its shell rushed out of the 9-colored flame ball, Yixian immediately moved his mind. In an instant, the 9-colored flame sea that enveloped this vast void rapidly shrank. In just half a breath it turned into a weak dot that was like a firefly. It shot over, entered between Bao Yuan's eyebrows and disappeared. Boom! Rumble. In less than 100 breaths, you actually made me lose 3 million members of my clan. Yixian, you must pay for all this. Just at this moment, an earth-shattering explosion suddenly came from the void in the distance. Accompanied by the earth-shattering explosion, De's thunderous roar rang out. 10 million doppelgangers. Explode. Chapter 4889. In front of them, in the cosmic void tens of billions of miles away, De's 5 mechanical avatars raised their heads at the same time. Their thunderous roars reverberated. 10 million avatars. Explode. Boom. Rumble. Before the last word explode could be heard, an earth-shattering explosion came from that part of the void. At this moment, the 5D avatars, whose strength had reached the peak of the 9th stage of desolate supremacy, actually exploded at the same time in an instant. As for Di's electronic consciousness, which had already self-exploded in the 9-colored flame ball and lost its avatar shell, it could not be seen in the void at this moment. It was obvious that before Yixian withdrew the 9-colored flame ball, it had already rushed into one of the 5 mechanical avatars. At this moment, following the explosion of the 5 mechanical avatars, a huge black hole instantly appeared in that corner of the void. The void was cracking inch by inch, and the violent turbulence of the void surged out. However, it had no effect on the self-explosion of Di's avatar. At the moment of the explosion, the 5 enormous avatars instantly turned into countless fragments. However, they were not swept away by the turbulence of the void. Instead, under the terrifying power of the explosion, they scattered in all directions and shot toward the 10 million official members of the Tianji clan in the surrounding void. At this moment, if there was time to count in detail, one would discover that the number of fragments formed by the self-explosion of the 5D avatars was clearly slightly more than 10 million. This number was exactly the same as the number of mechanical battle beasts formed by the official members of the Tianji clan in the surrounding void. Very obviously, the fragments formed by the self-explosion of these mechanical avatars would be shared by every mechanical battle beast formed by the official members of the Tianji clan. In fact, following this shocking explosion, what was rapidly shooting toward the surrounding mechanical battle beasts was not only the fragments formed by the self-explosion of Di's avatar. Previously, before the self-explosion, Di's avatar had roared, 10 million avatars. If it was only the fragments of the body, it obviously could not be considered a true 10 million avatars. This was because the body could not represent Di's existence. The core of its existence was its electronic consciousness. The so-called 10 million incarnations, strictly speaking, was a statement at the level of its electronic consciousness. In fact, this was indeed the case. Right now, in these 10 million pieces of body fragments of varying sizes that were shooting out in all directions, a faint light could be seen flickering. This incomparably cold light was Di's electronic consciousness. This scene happened too quickly, and the scene was shocking. Even Yixian did not expect that Di's 5 mechanical avatars would suddenly self-destruct and roar out the words, thousands of incarnations. The reason why his mechanical avatar had self-destructed in the 9-colored fireball was because he had no other choice. However, this was clearly not the case today. Moreover, in this situation where he was not trapped, Di actually detonated all 5 mechanical avatars at once. These were 5 perfect bodies that had all reached the peak of the 9th order of the ancients. However, without the slightest hesitation, they instantly self-destructed. Since Di had paid such a terrible price, it was obvious that he had a big plan. Although Yixian did not know what Di's ultimate goal was, he sensed that something was wrong. He even vaguely felt an extremely strong sense of danger suddenly rising in his heart. Roar! Screech! Screech! At this moment, the 3 Blood Sea avatars, the Heavenly King of the Void, and the Heavenly King of the Blood Mosquito raised their heads and roared at the same time. Without any hesitation, they immediately scattered in all directions, charging toward the area in the void where the mechanical battle beasts formed by the official members of the Heavenly Legacy clan were relatively densely gathered. Boom! The violent ape rushed to the left and reached the target area in the blink of an eye. The big-headed black stick in its hand swept through the air, and a shocking explosion sounded. In the blink of an eye, more than 200,000 mechanical battle beasts were killed. On the right, the skeleton avatar was even more violent. It directly teleported and appeared in the middle of a group of mechanical battle beasts in less than a tenth of an instant. The inverted Shenong's treasure cauldron in his hand was swept in a circle by him. With a boom, more than 300,000 mechanical battle beasts exploded. At the same time, the black fog avatar suddenly flashed and appeared in the area slightly forward on the right in less than half a breath's time. With a punch, more than 100,000 mechanical battle beasts exploded and died. As for the Heavenly King of the Void and the Heavenly King of the Blood Mosquito, they split into 2 groups. One rushed to the front while the other rushed to the back. With a roar, they opened their bloody mouths and each swallowed more than 200,000 mechanical battle beasts in less than a breath's time. All of this seemed to take a long time, but in fact, it happened in a breath's time. In a breath's time, Yixian's 5 avatars attacked with all their strength and killed more than 1,000,000 mechanical battle beasts. This included the body fragments of Di's avatar that were shooting toward these more than 1,000,000 mechanical battle beasts. Even the scattered electronic consciousness of Di that was attached to these body fragments was also destroyed. Whoosh! Swish! Swish, swish, swish. After this attack, the 5 avatars did not continue to attack. The Heavenly King of the Void and the Heavenly King of the Blood Mosquito were the most direct. They chewed on the spot and refined the mechanical battle beast fragments that they had swallowed into their bodies to nourish themselves. As for the 3 Blood Sea avatars of Yixian, a cold light flashed in their eyes. They each waved their hands and swept up the large number of mechanical battle beast fragments that had just exploded, turning them into a giant ball that was 1,000,000 feet in size. With a thought, all of them swept over and shot toward the Heavenly King of the Void and the Heavenly King of the Blood Mosquito. Another breath's time passed. Yixian's 5 avatars gathered together in the void. At this time, the more than 100,000 mechanical battle beasts that the Heavenly King of the Void and the Heavenly King of the Blood Mosquito were chewing in their mouths had also been swallowed into their stomachs and quickly refined and absorbed. The 3 Blood Sea avatars did not hesitate at all. They merged the 3 giant balls that they had just collected together, and then divided them into 2. They immediately shot toward the Heavenly King of the Void and the Heavenly King of the Blood Mosquito. They were directly swallowed into their stomachs, chewed, and quickly refined. This time the 5 Blood Sea avatars attacked at the same time and killed more than 1,000,000 mechanical battle beasts. Including the more than 3,000,000 from before, the total number was 5,000,000. In addition, they had also obtained more than 1,000,000 pieces of the shell fragments of Di's avatars after they had self-exploded. They were all made of the best materials. In addition, these shell fragments contained a wisp of Di's scattered electronic consciousness. It could be said that the benefits that the Heavenly King of the Void had obtained from swallowing this time were probably even greater than what he had obtained from hunting alone for 100 breaths. And because of this, the official members of the Tianji clan under Di's command had also decreased by more than 1,000,000. Now there were only about 8,000,000 left. Roar! Roar, roar, roar! Screech! Almost as soon as the Heavenly King of the Void and the Heavenly King of the Blood Mosquito swallowed the last giant ball fragments, a shocking roar came from the surrounding void. The scattered shell fragments of Di's avatars began to merge with the more than 8,000,000 mechanical battle beasts. At the same time Di's shocking roar rang out. The more than 800 mechanical battle beasts all emitted his voice, which merged into one and shook the heavens and the earth. Tianji change. Chapter 4890. Roar! Roar, roar, roar! Screech! All around the void, there was suddenly an earth-shattering roar and howl at this time. The fragments of Di's body had already merged with the remaining 8,000,000 or so mechanical battle beasts. What was surprising was that these 800 or so mechanical battle beasts were roaring at the same time. What came out of their mouths was actually Di's voice. When combined together it was earth-shattering. Tianji change! Boom! Rumble! Ka-cha-cha! In the next instant, an earth-shattering roar came from all directions. It was like a surging tide, accompanied by the ear-piercing sound of machinery grinding. It was a shocking sight. At this time, Yixian's 5 clones had already gathered together. Their expressions were all solemn. They did not move at all. They quietly observed the situation, paying attention to the subsequent changes of the 8,000,000 or so mechanical battle beasts in the void around them. In fact, Yixian had already vaguely guessed what was going on in front of him. 3-1. Quick update. This was because this scene was very similar to the mechanical fusion that D'Air's mechanical clan had carried out back then. If one had to point out a difference, it would be that D'Air's mechanical clan army of more than 100,000,000 had carried out the fusion on its own under D'Air's command. D'Air had not participated in it. However, D had participated in the fusion that was happening in front of him. Moreover, it was not just a simple participation. He had completely exploded his 5 clones, turning them into countless body fragments. Together with the scattered electronic consciousness, they had all merged into the bodies of the 8,000,000 or so mechanical battle beasts. It should be known that his 5 powerful clones were transformed from the black demonic dragon in the battle form of Tianji City. Now, all 5 clones had exploded and merged into the bodies of the 800 or so mechanical battle beasts. This meant that Tianji City had completely disappeared, and the 800 or so mechanical battle beasts had been scattered and merged. Based on this, Di had called this the Tianji transformation, and it clearly lived up to its name. Di had paid such a heavy price in exchange for the complete fusion of the Tianji clan. It was obviously not comparable to the fusion of Di's mechanical clan back then. In fact, this was indeed the case. At that time, Di's mechanical clan had spent half a day to complete the 7th fusion. Now, following Di's roar, the more than 800 Tianji clan mechanical battle beasts that had merged with his doppelganger's body parts moved at the same time. They gathered in one direction, like more than 800 shooting stars converging in one place. Swish! Swish, swish, swish. In the void, the sharp sound of something tearing through the air resounded from all directions. It was extremely ear-piercing, and it faintly made one's heart tremble. In a short span of 3 breaths, these 800-odd mechanical beasts had gathered in a void nearly 100 billion miles away. Their speed was too fast, far surpassing that of Di's mechanical army. Moreover, these 800 or so mechanical war beasts of the Heaven's Legacy race had clearly fused together. They had not been split into multiple camps and spread out multiple times. After gathering together, these 800-odd mechanical war beasts had fused into one body in less than 10 breaths. However, everything was not over yet. In their line of sight, a terrifying mechanical war beast that was more than 400 million miles in size was slowly stretching its huge limbs. However, there was still the ear-piercing sound of mechanical grinding coming from its body. Very clearly, this fusion was more than half complete. At present, there were only some internal adjustments that were continuing. As this internal adjustment was carried out, the surrounding void also began to vibrate faintly. Within the terrifying war beast that was more than 400 million miles in size, the suppressive aura that emanated grew stronger and stronger. Even the void fragment of the Eldritch universe was about to collapse. This was a very bad feeling. The increasingly powerful aura made Yixian feel increasingly uneasy. This was because it was clearly getting closer and closer to the true heavenly path realm. It felt the same as the 8th fusion of Di's mechanical army. The only difference was that Di's mechanical army had taken more than half a day to begin the 8th fusion. As for the Heaven's Legacy race army in front of him, with Di's full participation, it only took them about 10 breaths to reach this stage. However, what puzzled Yixian was what gave Di the right to do this. The 8th fusion of Di's mechanical army was clearly a warning. Yet, he still dared to attempt the true heavenly path realm in this Eldritch universe void. Where did he get the courage and self-confidence? With this doubt in mind, Yixian's eyes flashed. He subconsciously looked up into the sky above his head. The next instant, as though in response to his call, there was an extremely terrifying loud sound coming from high up in the sky. Boom! Rip! Following the loud sound, a crack appeared in the void. It was pitch black inside the crack, but a gigantic green vertical eye suddenly opened. Just as Yixian expected, just as the mechanical behemoth in front of him was about to step into the heavenly path realm, something unexpected happened once again. High up in the void, there was an earth-shattering explosion. After the sound of ripping silk, a black void crack appeared. Within the crack, there was a gigantic green vertical eye that suddenly opened. This green vertical eye was the primeval heaven's eye. Just like before, it was likely a projection avatar of the primeval heaven's eye. Its true body was most likely carrying out some important arrangement, so it could only descend as a projection avatar. Gotcha! Boom! Rumble! Almost at the same instant that the green vertical eye appeared, there was suddenly an ear-piercing cracking sound coming from high up in the sky. In their line of sight, a green light shot out from the vertical eye in the black crack. At first it was not big, only about 3 meters wide, but as it fell it instantly expanded. Its speed was too fast, and in less than half a breath of time, this cyan lightning bolt that was only about 3 meters wide had already turned into a vast sea of lightning. In the void below, the mechanical behemoth that the entire Heaven's Legacy race had transformed into was more than 400 million kilometers in size. Furthermore, the fusion was basically complete, and all that was left was the final fine-tuning of the interior. But in an instant, it was completely submerged by the majestic sea of lightning that showered down from high up in the sky. The scene was just too horrifying. Loud booms shook the heavens as they resounded incessantly. The green sea of lightning constantly emitted booms that made one's heart tremble. Boom! At the same time, another boom came from high up in the sky. Turning his head to look, the green vertical eye in the sky that shot out a beam of green lightning and turned into a vast sea of lightning also quietly closed at this moment. Then even the void crack disappeared, as if it had never appeared in the first place. At this moment, Yi Xian's heart was in his throat. He didn't know if Di Yi's shocking move would succeed or not. The meaning of the two different results was as different as the heavens and the earth. Chapter 4891. Boom! High up in the sky, a second earth-shattering boom rang out. The projection of the heavenly green eye disappeared into the darkness. Even that crack in the void had disappeared. Although this projection of the heavenly green eye seemed to have done the same when Di-Air's army of the mechanical race carried out the 8th fusion last time. But for some reason, Yi Xian clearly felt that this time, compared to the previous time, there was a sense of urgency. He didn't know if it was because the heavenly green eye was busy with other arrangements and had no time to leave, or if it was for some unknown reason. But no matter what, to Yi Xian this was definitely not a good thing. It made the uneasy feeling in his heart grow even stronger. It could be said that at this moment, his heart had already leaped to his throat. He didn't know if Di Yi's shocking move this time would succeed or not, but he was extremely nervous about it. This was because the difference in meaning between the two different outcomes was really too big. It was like the difference between heaven and earth. With heavy worry in his heart, Yi Xian's 5 great clones turned their heads at the same time. They retracted their gazes from that crack in the void that had already disappeared high up in the sky and turned to look at a place close to 100 billion miles ahead. Previously, when that beam of green lightning shot out from the projection of the heavenly green eye, it rapidly expanded and turned into a vast and boundless green sea. In the void in front of them, this mechanical beast that was more than 400 million miles long and formed by the fusion of the entire heavenly legacy race was completely submerged by the majestic sea of lightning that poured down from the sky above its head in an instant. Now this boundless green sea of lightning was still wreaking havoc, enveloping a vast expanse of void that was 10 billion miles away. This entire stretch of void had turned into a green sea of lightning. Nothing could be seen except for the endless green lightning that had turned into a raging sea of lightning that was roaring and wreaking havoc. That gigantic mechanical beast that was only around 400 million miles long had entered this vast green sea of lightning. It might not be said that it was like a clay ox entering the sea, but it was probably more or less the same. At this moment there was no trace of that mechanical beast at all. But Yi Xian's heart, which was in his throat, did not relax for even a moment. This was because he knew that as long as this vast and boundless green sea of lightning had not dissipated, everything was not over. At this moment the boundless and distant void had long since fallen into a deathly silence. Billions of li away, countless heaven's legacy race warships, starships, and ordinary mechanical warbeasts stretched as far as the eye could see. The scene in front of him was really too shocking. The loud noise shook the heavens and resounded continuously. There was always a continuous rumbling sound coming from the sea of green lightning, causing people's hearts to tremble. Even though the warships, star fortresses, and ordinary heaven's legacy race mechanical beasts gathered in the distance did not have intelligence and self-awareness like the official members of the race. However, at this moment they seemed to be shocked by the shocking scene in front of them. In this corner of the void of the primordial world fragment, except for the roaring and raging sound of the sea of green lightning that enveloped a radius of 10 billion miles, the other boundless and vast areas were so quiet that even a pin drop could be heard. It was so quiet that it made one's heart tremble. Looking at all this and feeling the strange aura in the air that was so quiet that it was terrifying, Yi Xian's heart grew heavier and heavier. At this moment, the scene of the mechanical race army under Di-Air carrying out the 8th fusion and attempting to break through to the heavenly Tao realm surfaced in his mind back then. After seeing the heavenly Tao descend personally and confirming his guess, Yi Xian did not wait for the sea of green lightning that enveloped the gigantic mechanical beast to dissipate. He left early on. After he left, the sea of cyan lightning continued to wreak havoc for several dozen breaths of time before dissipating. According to the black-robed desolate sovereign, at that time, as the sea of green lightning dissipated, the terrifying gigantic beast that only lacked the final internal adjustments to complete the 8th fusion appeared. However, it had already fused together, and its terrifying body that spanned a radius of 400 million li had been torn apart, turning into more than a dozen mechanical warbeasts of varying sizes. This was what it should have been. This was the purpose of the heavenly Tao's green eye's sudden descent. The reason why the gigantic mechanical beast that Air had fused with had been torn apart was because it was forcefully suppressed by the heavenly Tao, interrupting the sign of the eighth fusion. Without a doubt, such a forceful interruption by external interference was an unimaginable heavy blow to Air, who had fused into that terrifying war beast, and the more than 80 million members of the mechanical race under his command. After the sea of green lightning dissipated, Air's figure was battered and exhausted, and he was almost seriously injured. Furthermore, according to the black-robed desolate sovereign's estimation, at least 10 million of the 80 million members of the mechanical race had perished. After the sea of green lightning disappeared, more than a dozen warbeasts of various sizes appeared after being torn apart. There were different wounds on their bodies, but all of them were ghastly. Such a result was consistent with Yixian's judgment. Although only a single bolt of green lightning had descended, it was the work of the heavenly Tao's green eye after all. It represented the suppression of the will of the heavenly Tao, and its power was not to be underestimated. It was also because of this reason that after the sea of green lightning dissipated, Air did not dare to stay for even a moment. He immediately took the dozen or so mechanical warbeasts and hurriedly turned around and fled in a sorry state. Until now he had never appeared again. Obviously the loss that time was too great. To the entire mechanical race under his command, it would take a long time before they could catch their breaths. According to the situation that time, if nothing unexpected happened, the sea of green lightning that was still raging endlessly in front of them would, at most, dissipate in a dozen breaths' time. Following the disappearance of this sea of green lightning, the mechanical beasts of the Tianji clan had basically completed the entire fusion. Only the internal fine-tuning was still continuing. Most likely, it was the same as the eighth fusion that the mechanical race under Air's command had carried out not long ago. Not only was it a complete failure, but it also suffered heavy losses. However, for some reason, Yixian still had a very strong intuition in his heart that made him feel extremely uneasy. He felt that the situation this time was very likely to be different from the fusion carried out by the mechanical race under Air's command not long ago. There was no reason for this intuition. He merely felt that was well aware of the result of the fusion carried out by Air not long ago. Under such circumstances, with his craftiness and shrewdness, if he was not confident, why would he recklessly follow in Air's footsteps? At that time Air had failed. If the result today was different, then the fusion carried out by and the power of the entire Tianji clan this time would undoubtedly be a success. If all of this was true, then the current situation in this void fragment of the untainted world would instantly change again. The impact would be so great that it was simply unimaginable. A dozen breaths worth of time passed in the blink of an eye. At this moment, the earth-shattering roar in front of them suddenly quieted down. The sea of green lightning that enveloped the void space of billions of miles dissipated in the blink of an eye. The mechanical beasts that had merged with and his clan appeared. Almost in the next instant, Yixian sucked in a breath of cold air and exclaimed in shock, "Damn it, the heavenly Tao's eye is really going easy on us." Chapter 4892. Darn it, the heavenly Tao's green eye is indeed going easy on me. Following that, the earth-shattering boom in front of him suddenly fell silent. The azure-colored lightning sea that enveloped the void dissipated in a blink of an eye, revealing the form of De's merged mechanical behemoth. Yixian drew a cold gasp as he exclaimed in front of him, in the void tens of billions of kilometers away, an extremely powerful aura was surging over as the azure-colored lightning sea dissipated. Even the void tortoise that Yixian had previously encountered in the primordial chaos void had recovered its peak cultivation. It was an existence that was infinitely close to the heavenly Tao realm, but the cultivation aura it emitted was slightly inferior to what Yixian sensed. Heavenly Tao realm. The mechanical behemoth that had fused with the strength of the entire Heaven's legacy race, had broken through to the heavenly Tao realm. None of this was normal. Yixian was instantly enlightened. At that moment he recalled Xinghua. Back when he met Xinghua in the primordial chaos star domain, the old bastard was clearly with primeval heaven's eye. It was obvious that the two were in cahoots. And not long ago, When D-Air's mechanical behemoth began fusing to break through to the heavenly Tao realm, primeval heavens, I had sent a projection avatar down. It caused D-Air to suffer heavy losses, resulting in his failure to break through to the heavenly Tao realm. From that moment on, Yi Xian's suspicion of D-Air had nearly dissipated. He did not believe that he was in cahoots with Xinghua. As for De, although he had his suspicions, since D-Air did not collude with Xinghua, the possibility of D being in cahoots was even lower. However, the truth was astounding. Primeval heavens, I suppressed D-Air, but went easy on D. Just this point alone was enough to explain the problem. In the three main dimensions of the cosmos, it was rumored that Xinghua was killed by D. As for D-Air, he had a falling out with De because of this. He had always been with the humans, serving as an imperial preceptor in the human technological faction's immortal dynasty. But now it seemed that this was not the case. The possibility of D-Air colluding with Xingbo was very small. On the contrary, D. Xingbo and primeval heavens, I most likely had some kind of secret relationship that the outside world did not know about. Realizing this, Yi Xian's heart suddenly became extremely heavy. He did not know what Xingbo, primeval heavens I, and D were plotting. He did not even know what special arrangements they had. But now D had used the strength of the entire Tianji race to fuse with the mechanical behemoth and attempt to break through to the heavenly Tao realm. He had even succeeded because of the heavenly Tao's green eye going easy on him. This was clearly part of their plan. It was obvious that the heavenly Tao's green eye wanted to use D to integrate and control the various forces in the primordial world fragment void. With this in mind, a cold glint flashed in Yi Xian's eyes as he muttered, "Heavenly Tao realm? If you piss me off, it might not be impossible for me to kill you." The heavenly Tao realm was also divided into strong and weak. For example, the headless infant corpse and the primeval heavens I were the strongest existences in the heavenly Tao realm. As for the mechanical behemoth that D had fused with the strength of the entire Tianji race, although it was also at the heavenly Tao realm, it had just entered the realm. Furthermore, it had been achieved through such a forceful fusion. Although it was also a heavenly Tao realm expert, it was definitely the weakest existence in the heavenly Tao realm. Compared to senior peak desolate supremacies like the void gigantic tortoise and the golden divine dragon, ancient existences that were infinitely close to the heavenly Tao realm, it was likely only slightly stronger. Now, Yi Xian already had a half-step heavenly Tao realm cultivation level. Although he was still a little inferior to ancient peak desolate supremacies like the void gigantic tortoise and the golden divine dragon, he was still a little inferior. However, if he were to use the heaven-falling bow, it was not impossible for him to kill Di Yi's mechanical behemoth with one arrow. In fact, the possibility of that happening was very high. After all, in that incomparable battle that had caused chaos in the primordial chaos, the primordial Yaksha had used the heaven-falling bow to shoot an arrow into the sky. It had even nearly blasted the primeval heaven's eye out of the void. However, the heaven-falling bow was no trifling matter. The destructive power that it could unleash in an instant was extremely terrifying. Even Yi Xian had always treated it as a trump card. He had always kept it hidden and had never used it casually. Therefore, even now, Yi Xian did not plan on using it casually. However, even if he did not use the heaven-falling bow to kill De, it did not mean that Yi Xian would not take action. He wanted to take this opportunity to test the true combat strength of the mechanical behemoth that De had fused with the entire Tianji race. With this thought in mind, a cold glint flashed in Yi Xian's eyes as he immediately turned his head to look ahead. Roar! At that moment, an earth-shattering roar was heard. Its might was so astounding that the void trembled violently. After all, the existence that had let out the roar was a true heavenly Tao realm existence. This mechanical behemoth was fused with the remaining 8 million plus Tianji race members of De Yi's own body. After the baptism of the Azure Lightning Sea, it had now stepped into the heavenly Tao realm. In this primordial chaos void, it was definitely a supreme existence. The entire mechanical behemoth was 400 million kilometers in size. It stood upright and had 3 legs and 6 arms. Its head was shaped like a beehive and it had many facets. These facets were clearly cannon muzzles that could shoot out energy beams from the battleship cannons in all directions. In truth, there was no need for the ship's cannons to attack with such a colossal mechanical behemoth. Even a simple punch from it would be enough to cause the weather to change. Roar! Yixian, my heavenly legacy beast has completed its fusion. Although it has lost more than 5 million clansmen, causing its combat strength to be much weaker than expected, it has only just stepped into the heavenly Tao realm. Furthermore, the heavenly legacy beast suffered quite a bit of damage during the lightning tribulation's baptism. It has yet to reach its peak state. But even if I can't kill you today, I will definitely heavily injure you. You will not be able to escape this calamity. Roar! With that said, Dee did not speak further. The heavenly legacy beast raised its head once again and let out a shocking roar. Following that, its body flashed as it charged over with its fist raised. Rumble. Kacha. The heavenly legacy beast's body was just too massive. It was 400 million kilometers in size. With a single step, it traversed hundreds of millions of kilometers. In a blink of an eye, it was right in front of Dee. This punch caused the void to shatter inch by inch. Its strength was just too ferocious. Not only that, what was even stranger was that apart from the ferocious strength of the punch, there was also a mysterious force that pressed down from every direction. This was the suppression of the heavenly Tao. A world could only have one will of the heavenly Tao. Even if there were many, only one could be the main one. The other heavenly Tao were like subsidiary existences. Although they could not control the nomological operations of the world, they were authorized by the main heavenly Tao. To a certain extent, they could attract the suppression of the world's will. Now, the invisible force that Yixian's 5 avatars sensed was clearly the power that the primeval heavens I had authorized to the heavenly legacy beast. It was a portion of the nomological operations of this world. To put it simply, anyone who fought the heavenly legacy beast was equivalent to fighting a portion of the world's power. It was obvious how difficult it was. Chapter 4893. Roar. The heavenly mystery beast raised its head and let out an earth-shattering roar. Immediately after, its figure flashed as it charged over with its fists raised. Rumble. Kachacha. Its body was too huge, 400 million miles long. With a single step, it covered hundreds of millions of miles. In the blink of an eye, it was right in front of Yixian. This punch caused the void to shatter inch by inch. Its strength was too violent. What was even stranger was that when he punched out, in addition to the ferocious strength, there was also a mysterious force that pressed down on him from all directions. This was the suppression of the heavenly Tao. Fighting with it was equivalent to fighting against a part of the power of this world. The difficulty of this battle could be imagined. As these thoughts flashed through his mind, Yixian's heart sank to the bottom. However, he did not escape. The heavenly mystery beast in front of him was indeed not in its peak condition. After all, it had just experienced the baptism of the heavenly Tao lightning tribulation. According to Yixian's calculations, this heavenly mystery beast would need to recuperate for at least a few years before it could fully recover from the damage it had suffered from the heavenly Tao lightning tribulation. At that time, it would be in its peak condition. If Yixian did not even dare to fight with it now that it was not in its peak condition, wouldn't it be even worse in a few years' time? Furthermore, running away from a battle had never been Yixian's style. This time, even if he had to suffer some injuries, he had to fight a few rounds with this heaven's secret beast to test its strength. Roar! Roar! Screech! Rumble! At this moment, as a cold light flashed in his eyes, Yixian's 5 clones charged out at the same time. Violent Ape Skeleton Black Fog, Void Heavenly King, and Blood Mosquito Heavenly King. The 5 clones had all reached the peak of Supreme Primordial Level 9. They were peak Desolate Supremacies, which was half a step into the heavenly Tao. At this moment, they attacked at the same time, each charging towards the heavenly mystery beast from different directions. With a punch, heaven and earth trembled violently. Bang! Boom! A sky-shaking boom could be heard as the 40,000 miles tall heaven mystery beast stopped moving abruptly. The punches launched by all 5 of Yixian's clones landed on his body. On the contrary, its punch missed. After all, its body was too big and its agility was not as good, so it was dodged. However, the result left everyone speechless. Although cracks that looked like a spider web appeared on the heavenly mystery beast's body, they didn't spread too far. The 5 areas that were struck were all only a few million kilometers away, and they just so happened to be the size of the fists of Yixian's 5 clones. In other words, the 5 peak Desolate Supremacies, who were half-step heavenly Tao experts, had only managed to leave a small crack on the surface of the Heaven's Legacy Beast's body after being struck by their full-strength punches. Furthermore, they had even landed a solid blow on its body. Based on this point alone, these 5 punches definitely wouldn't cause any internal damage to him. To put it bluntly, it was a flesh wound. PFFF. This result made Yixian's heart sink again. Immediately after, Bao Yuan opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. Although the Heaven's Mystery Beast's punch was avoided, even the remaining force was extremely terrifying. Bao Yuan was the closest to the punch, and when he dodged to the side, the wind from the punch rubbed against his chest. Just like that, Bao Yuan's qi and blood were in turmoil. He opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. Although it was far from a serious injury, it could be considered a light injury. Roar! Just you wait. Bao Yuan raised his hand and wiped away the blood at the corner of his mouth. He raised his head and roared angrily, revealing endless resentment and unwillingness. Although it was only one exchange, he had basically figured out the depth of this Heaven's Mystery Beast. As such, there was no need to continue this battle. It was time to withdraw and escape. The next moment, there was a strange sound of splashing water. The skeleton avatar in the black fog body collapsed instantly, turning into a sea of blood that spread out and enveloped a corner of the universe void. Even the void Heavenly King and the blood mosquito Heavenly King turned into a ray of light and entered the sea of blood. The sea of blood appeared quickly and dissipated even faster. In the blink of an eye, it condensed into a tiny dot the size of a firefly. It shot over and entered between Bao Yuan's eyebrows. Immediately after, Bao Yuan turned his head and glanced at the Heaven's Mystery Beast. Without any hesitation, his figure flashed and tore open a crack in the void. He stepped into it and disappeared. Roar! The target disappeared into the distance. The Heaven's Mystery Beast raised its head and let out a shocking roar. However, it didn't give chase. Instead, it turned around and rushed into the depths of the Heaven's Mystery Star Zone. To it, the most important thing now was to recover from the injuries it had suffered during the Heavenly Tribulation. It was only a few years. Once it recovered from its injuries, it would conquer everywhere and destroy the Magic Hall and the Heavenly Dao Alliance in one fell swoop. Di had stepped into the Heavenly Dao realm. In less than 3 days after Yixian's departure, this news had spread throughout the primordial world fragment, causing an uproar and setting off huge waves. It could be said that the entire vast primordial world fragment was trembling because of this. The Magic Hall didn't have any reaction. The upper echelons of the various small factions were all trembling in fear. However, they were all hiding in their own star zones, not daring to show themselves. The one with the biggest reaction was the Heavenly Dao Alliance. The moment the news spread, the upper echelons of the 3 major factions of the Heavenly Dao Alliance gathered together and held an emergency meeting in the central region of the Human Federation, on the peak of a towering mountain on a gigantic life star. Dozens of figures were gathered in the main hall of the Federation's headquarters. Regarding this matter, they were holding an emergency meeting. In the Heavenly Dao Alliance, those who were qualified to appear in the main hall were all primordial beings of the Human Federation. There were a total of more than 40 of them. However, the other 6 ancient Baron supremacies of the Human Federation did not appear this time. In addition to Di Air, the Immortal Emperor, Zhu Wuqian of the Sky Palace and Qi Xiaohong of the Temple of Glory were also sitting in a corner of the main hall. In the other 2 directions of the main hall, there were 4 to 5 figures each. The 4 figures on the left looked like humans, but their bodies were filled with the aura of ferocious beasts. They were the 4 primordial supremacies from the alliance of 10,000 races. They were the Hell Ant, the Space Rat, the Giant Ferocious, and the Evil Slime from the First Universe. The aura of the 5 figures on the right showed that they had the bloodline of ferocious beasts in them, and it was extremely thick. They were the 5 desolate supremacies from the Star Alliance. The Scarlet Unicorn, the 9 Phantom Demon Crocodile, the 9-Headed Blood Wirm, the Azure Rock and the Bloodthirsty War Lion. There were a total of 9 desolate supremacies in the main hall. Usually, they would not gather here so easily, but this time, when the Master of the Magic Hall attacked the Tianji clan, they had already gathered here, waiting for the news. However, the final result was simply too shocking. In addition to the 3 Bloodsea clones, the Master of the Magic Hall had even modified the mechanical behemoth in a short period of time. Now, it had split into 2, and their cultivation had both reached the 9th level of the Supreme of the Ancients. Chapter 4894. In other words, there were already 5 peak desolate supremacies who were half-step heavenly Tao. Just this news was already shocking enough, but what was even more shocking was yet to come. After the Magic Hall Master killed more than 5 million official members of the Tianji clan, Di made the same choice as Di Air did on that day in a fit of rage. With the combined strength of the entire Tianji clan's 8 million official members, he fused them into a mechanical battle beast, and used it to attack the true heavenly Tao realm. The only difference was that Di Air failed that day and was suppressed by the heavenly Tao. As for Di, although he attracted the primeval heaven's eye and the lightning tribulation, he actually succeeded. When they thought of this, the expressions of the Heavenly Law Alliance's higher-ups in the main hall turned ugly. Deep resentment could be seen in their gloomy expressions, especially Di Air. He gritted his teeth so hard that creaking sounds could be heard. It was obvious that he was extremely angry. From the looks of it, this primeval heaven and earth fragment is going to change again very soon. After a short silence, Di Air broke the silence and spoke first. Halfway through, he sighed faintly. Sigh to think that our Heavenly Tao Alliance, the Magic Hall, and the Tianji clan had just formed a tripartite balance of power. Who knew that we would be left far behind in the blink of an eye? Needless to say about the current Tianji clan, even the Magic Hall has 5 peak desolate supremacies. In addition, there are 9 early-stage desolate supremacies who have just broken through and entered this realm. Unknowingly, with 16 desolate supremacies, the Heavenly Tao Alliance, which was originally the strongest, has now become the weakest existence. At this point, a bitter smile appeared on Di Air's face. Send out the order. The 3 alliances should be quieter recently. If there is no need, other than the daily patrols and scouts, the rest of the forces should not wander around casually. There's no need to worry about the Tianji clan. After all, Di's Heavenly Tao beast has just survived the Heavenly Tao lightning tribulation, and is somewhat injured. For such an existence, even a small recovery will take at least a few years. However, we have to be on guard against the Magic Hall. Yixian has fallen and is full of tricks. Currently, our alliance's 3 factions have yet to have a half-step Heavenly Tao realm ancestor awaken. Before that, we should be on guard. Hearing this, the Heavenly Tao Alliance's upper echelons in the hall, although their faces were filled with indignation and unwillingness, no one refuted him. With the current situation, the Heavenly Tao Alliance, which had been the dominant force not long ago, could only swallow its anger and tuck its tail between its legs. Rising Sun Forbidden Area. Yixian's Immortal's Cave Star. After leaving the Heavenly Mystery Star region, Yixian immediately returned to the Forbidden Land of Sunrise. He didn't even stay in the void of the Forbidden Land and directly entered the Immortal's Cave Star. Now, he was sitting within the Demon Palace at the peak of the towering mountain. With a thought, 2 beams of light shot out from his glabella. They expanded with the wind and transformed into 2 mechanical war beasts that were more than 50 million kilometers long. They were none other than Heavenly King Void and Heavenly King Blood Mosquito. This time, the 2 mechanical Heavenly Kings had reaped great rewards in the Tianji Star Zone. Just the mechanical war beasts and the scattered electronic consciousnesses of the official Tianji clan clansmen had devoured more than 5 million. Now that they had safely returned, they would split half of the spoils stored in their bodies to Heavenly King Time and Heavenly King Crying Soul. The 4 Heavenly Kings would need to fuse in the future to attempt to break through to the Heavenly Tao realm. Therefore, it was best to distribute them evenly before that happened. That way, the future fusion would be the most stable. Heavenly King Crying Soul and Heavenly King Time guarded the entire Rising Sun Forbidden Land outside the Cave Abode Star. Heavenly King Void and Heavenly King Blood Mosquito immediately left, splitting half of the spoils with them. As for Yixian, after some thought, he decided to enter seclusion once again. He had long absorbed all the benefits he had gained from his breakthrough, fusing them into his soul and body. Furthermore, his final strike had injured his physical body berserk ape. He could take advantage of this opportunity to make another breakthrough, as if he had broken through and then stood up again. Rumble. After making the decision, he suddenly waved his hand. Instantly, a beam of light shot out. In the blink of an eye, it transformed into the Shinong Cauldron and hovered behind the huge mountain where the Magic Hall was located. Following that, Yixian's figure flashed and stepped into the cauldron's mouth that was shrouded in 9-colored fog. Only after entering the cauldron's space did he sit down cross-legged above the volcano in the central region. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh whoosh! Almost at the next instant, a large number of faint air-breaking sounds were heard. Beams of light shot out from Yixian's body and hovered in front of him. They were the cultivation resources he had taken out from the undying world in his body for this breakthrough. Among them were the all-evil origin liquid, the 9-colored divine medicine, and various other top-grade cultivation resources. There was even a large canopy of gray chaos herbs that had a circumference of at least 10,000 feet. All the cultivation resources were compressed to the size of a nascent soul fist by the power of the Shenong Cauldron's field. In the blink of an eye, they were swallowed into his stomach. The nascent soul fist-sized round bead quickly melted. Whoosh! Rumble! Within his body, the sound of chains rattling could be heard. A majestic energy river formed in his meridians. Accompanied by the sound of thunder, it began to circulate continuously until it was completely refined. As he circulated his qi over and over again, the large river of energy disappeared from Yixian's meridians. After completely merging with his divine soul and physical body, he only needed to gather his strength to launch a single attack before the shackles broke. In the next instant, the anticipated system notification rang out in his mind. Ding! Congratulations to host for breaking through the realm of the ancient Dongshu mantra. Current realm. Desolate Ancient Stage 9 Perfection. Ding! Congratulations to host for breaking through the realm of the physical body's blood qi. Current realm. Desolate Ancient Stage 9 Perfection. Desolate Ancient Stage 9 was the perfection realm. It meant that Yixian's cultivation had reached the peak of the mighty realm. Before this breakthrough, Huang Xiaolong's cultivation was at the 8th order of the Desolate era. After activating the ancient Devil Ape bloodline in his body, his strength instantly rose to the 9th order of the Desolate era. If he executed the 9 Devil Ape transformations and reached the 9th order, his battle prowess would rise to the 9th order of the Desolate era. In other words, he was at the half-step Heavenly Tao realm. Unfortunately, as he was crossing a major realm, even with the addition of his majestic body's blood qi to his cultivation level, his true combat strength could not reach the level of a true Heavenly Tao realm expert. But now, with this breakthrough, Yixian would instantly have the cultivation level of a Desolate Supreme after activating the primordial Demon Ape bloodline. Under such circumstances, once he used the 9 transformations of the Demonic Ape bloodline, and directly entered the 9th transformation, his peak combat strength would instantly reach Heavenly Tao Realm Level 1. In fact, with a body that was 60 million miles long, the power of blood and qi that was so boundless that it made one's hair stand on end had not even been taken into account. Chapter 4895. With this breakthrough, Yixian activated the Devil Ape bloodline in his body, and instantly attained the cultivation level of a Primordial Supreme. Under such circumstances, the moment he used the 9 Devil Ape transformations bloodline ability, and entered the 9th transformation, his peak combat strength would reach the first stage of the Heavenly Tao realm in an instant. If one were to include his massive physical body that spanned 60 million miles and the power of blood and qi that was so majestic that it made one's hair stand on end, then he would be a powerful existence at the second stage of the Heavenly Tao realm. Unfortunately, this was only in theory. In fact, although he had successfully broken through this time, Yixian still didn't show any joy on his face. He didn't seem to be in high spirits and could even be said to be in low spirits. This was because even though he had yet to use the 9 Devil Ape transformations, he had a vague intuition that the guess that suddenly appeared in his mind was probably true. If everything was true, then after this breakthrough, he still wouldn't be able to reach the true Heavenly Tao realm. Even if he broke through 1 or 2 more stages, he would become a mid-stage mighty figure. At that time, after using the 9 Devil Ape transformations bloodline ability to the 9th transformation, he would still be infinitely close, but he still wouldn't be considered to have reached the true Heavenly Tao realm. To put it simply, every time the 9 Devil Ape transformations transformed, the effect of increasing one's cultivation level by 1 stage was only effective within the Heavenly Tao realm, and couldn't surpass the true Heavenly Tao realm. Previously, when he saw that D-Air, the Claw Elephant War Beast, and the Star Python War Beast were about to step into the true Heavenly Tao realm because of the 8th fusion, Yixian immediately thought of himself when he encountered the projection of the Heavenly Tao's green eyes and was forcefully stopped on the path of the Heavenly Tao. It was because of this that Yixian didn't even have the interest to see what would happen to D-Air, the Claw Elephant Battle Beast, and the Star Python Battle Beast. He immediately rushed back to the cave abode Star and entered seclusion. The last time he broke through, he was looking forward to 2 consecutive breakthroughs. His goal was to see if using such a bloodline divine power to instantly enter the Heavenly Tao realm and become in existence at the first stage of the Heavenly Tao realm would result in the suppression of the Heavenly Tao. Or rather, would he be able to successfully enter the first stage of the Heavenly Tao realm? However, during his last closed-door cultivation, the 2 consecutive breakthroughs that he had anticipated did not come. As a result, Yixian was unable to truly verify this conjecture. Now, he was already a half-step Desolate Venerable. Once he activated the 9 Demon Ape transformation, he would instantly step into the first-rank Desolate Venerable. After the 9 transformations, he should be able to reach the first stage of the Heavenly Way. However, it was still unknown whether he could actually reach the first stage of the Heavenly Way. This was too important. Even he felt very uneasy in his heart. Forget it. What will come will come. If this is the truth, it's better to face it sooner rather than later. Muttering softly, Yixian sighed faintly. Then he no longer hesitated. With a flash of coldness in his eyes, he immediately rushed out of the Shenong Cauldron and appeared in the universe void outside the cave star. He raised his head and let out a heaven-shaking roar. 9 transformations of the demonic ape. 9th transformation. Roar. As the roar shook the heavens in the blink of an eye, his body, which was originally only 100 feet tall, had completely expanded in less than a breath's time. The speed was so fast that it made one's hair stand on end. The power in his body was rolling like a roaring river. Endless murderous intent surged from his limbs and bones. There was also an unimaginably majestic and terrifying aura that spread out. Moreover, at the same time that his body expanded, the aura of cultivation that was emitted from the body of the violent ape also rose rapidly. In less than half a breath from the first-rank Desolate Venerable, in the blink of an eye, to the current 9th-rank Desolate Venerable. After that, there were no more changes. Of course, although Yixian was still at the 9th-rank Desolate Venerable, this time, after all, he had broken through another level of cultivation. Under the state of the 9th transformation compared to before, he was obviously stronger. However, there was still a layer of window paper that had not been pierced through before reaching the true Heavenly Way realm. This result made him feel quite depressed, and he sighed again. His guess had become reality. This fragment of void belonged to the primordial world. Now, as the end of the primordial world was approaching, the green eye of the primordial Heavenly Tao was rapidly regaining control of the primordial world fragments that had been shattered during the great battle back then unknowingly. The power of law in this void fragment of the desolate world was changing invisibly. It could be said that it was not only this void fragment of the desolate world, but also the other void fragments formed after the collapse of the desolate world, including the current 3 main dimensions of the starry sky. If one did not obtain the recognition of the primeval heaven's eye, no existence could truly enter the Heavenly Way realm. It was certain that when the 9th-rank Desolate Venerable was about to break through to the true Heavenly Way realm and was about to succeed, it would trigger the reaction of the laws of heaven and earth, causing the primeval heaven's eye to descend and send down the Heavenly Way lightning tribulation to destroy or prevent it. As for Yixian's current cultivation base, it was only at the Great Perfection Stage 9 of the Primordial Era. The Desolate Sovereign's cultivation base at the Great Perfection Stage 9 was only achieved by the effects of the 9 transformations of the demonic ape's bloodline ability. This effect was only effective below the Heavenly Way realm, and there was no way to exceed it. Therefore, even though Yixian had the powerful cultivation level and combat strength of a Desolate Venerable's 9th-rank Desolate Venerable, he had yet to truly touch that chord. The power of law in this void fragment did not sense the aura of someone about to break through to the true Heavenly Way realm. Therefore, the primeval heaven's eye did not descend. From the looks of it, with my present cultivation level, I can only step into the true Heavenly Way realm in the 9th demonic ape transformation state in the primordial chaos void. After pondering for a moment, Yixian muttered softly, although this is still a guess, there shouldn't be any surprises. This is because the primeval heaven's eye is only a manifestation of the will of the primordial Heavenly Tao back then. It is unable to affect the nomological powers of the primordial chaos void. Over there, the so-called heavenly Tao's eye is only in existence similar to other living beings in the cosmos. In other words, there's no need for the recognition of the primeval heaven's eye to enter the heavenly Tao realm there. Upon saying this, Yi Xian's eyes flashed. With a flash, he charged into the cave abode star again before the green ox, the six-headed blood Devouring, and the other members of the upper echelons of the magic hall rushed over after hearing the commotion. Although he wanted to immediately head to the primordial chaos void and attempt to enter the 9th transformation state, he wanted to see if it was as he guessed. There, he could successfully use the 9 demonic ape transformation divine powers effects to directly step into the heavenly Tao realm. However, this matter was not urgent. There was plenty of time. The most urgent matter at hand was to raise his cultivation level to the true desolate venerable realm. After his breakthrough, he was already a primordial venerable 9th rank desolate venerable. As long as he consumed a level 29 desolate venerable pill, he would be able to step into the true desolate venerable realm in a short period of time. He had been looking forward to this day for a long time. Now that it was right in front of him, he naturally could not delay any further. Chapter 4896. Whoosh! A weak sound of breaking through the air rang out. After returning to the cave star, Yi Xian's eyes were cold as he once again stepped into the cauldron that was filled with a 9-colored mist. After entering the cauldron's space, he sat down cross-legged above the volcano in the central region. Whoosh whoosh whoosh! With a wave of his hand, a large number of faint sounds of breaking through the air could be heard. Rays of light shot out from Yi Xian's body and floated in front of him. They were all cultivation resources that he took out from the undying world in his body for this breakthrough. Among them were the all-evil origin liquid, the 9-colored divine medicine, and other top-grade cultivation resources. But the most important thing was a level 29 desolate supremacy treasure pill that emitted an extremely rich energy aura. Taking a deep breath, Yi Xian didn't hesitate in the slightest. Very quickly, all of the cultivation resources were activated by him. The power of the domain was compressed to the size of a nascent soul fist. Then he swallowed them all into his stomach and quickly dissolved them. Whoosh! Rumble. Almost in the next instant, the clanking sound of chains came from his body, and a majestic energy river was formed, accompanied by the sound of thunder, and it began to circulate continuously until it was completely refined. In the end, the great river of energy disappeared from the meridians in Yi Xian's body, and completely merged with his soul and body. As for Yi Xian, he'd only accumulated enough energy to launch a single attack before the shackles broke. In the next instant, the anticipated system notification rang out in his mind. Ding! Congratulations to the host for breaking through the realm of the ancient Dongshu technique. Current realm. First Order Primordials Supreme. Ding! Congratulations to the host for breaking through the realm of the physical body. Current realm. First Order Primordials Supreme. First Order Desolate Supremacy. He had finally officially stepped into this realm. But Yi Xian did not feel too happy. This was because he knew that even if he used the 9 transformations of the demonic ape again after this breakthrough and directly entered the 9th transformation, his peak battle strength would still only be at the peak of the 9th Order Primordial Supreme. Of course, he would definitely be stronger than before this breakthrough, but no matter how strong he was, there would still be a fine line between him and the true heavenly Tao realm. In this void fragment of the desolate world, without the recognition of the desolate heavenly Tao, he would never be able to break through that layer of paper, and would never be able to step into the true heavenly Tao realm. However, although he was more or less certain of this result since he had another breakthrough no matter what, it was still necessary to try again. After all, it would not affect anything. What if this time, because his cultivation strength had entered the true heavenly Tao realm, it was different and caused some unexpected changes? Although this hope was extremely slim, it was worth a try. With this thought in mind, a cold light flashed in Yi Xian's eyes. He immediately rushed out of the Shenong cauldron once again, but he didn't go to the void of the universe outside the cave star. In the next instant, he raised his head and roared. 9 transformations of the demonic ape. 9th transformation. Roar! As this roar shook the heavens in the blink of an eye, his body, which was originally only 10 feet tall, had completely expanded in less than a breath's time. The speed was so fast that it made one's hair stand on end. It was only when he was 60 million miles away and was about to touch the atmosphere above the star that he suddenly stopped. In addition, the power in his body was surging like a roaring river, and endless murderous intent surged from his limbs and bones. Invisibly, there was an unimaginably majestic and terrifying aura that spread out, and at the same time as his body skyrocketed, his cultivation aura also rose rapidly. In less than half a breath's time, he had already soared from the First Order Primordial Supreme to the current Ninth Order Primordial Supreme. Then there was no then. Sure enough, even if his own cultivation had broken through to the true Primordial Sovereign Stage 1, after activating the bloodline ability of the 9 transformations of the demonic ape, and using it to the 9th transformation, the limit of Yixian's cultivation, it was still the great perfection of the 9th step of the Desolate Sovereign. That step, he was still unable to take it. It seems that if I want to use the 9 transformations of the demonic ape to obtain the true heavenly Tao realm cultivation in advance, I can only enter the primordial chaos void. This time Yixian completely gave up. A bitter smile appeared on his face as he shook his head and sighed. Otherwise, in the shattered void formed by the collapse of the primordial chaos void, no matter how much I break through, I can only get closer and closer to the true heavenly Tao realm. That final step has already become a natural chasm that is impossible to cross. Sigh. Boom. Rumble. Just as Yixian was feeling depressed, in the universe void outside the cave star beneath his feet, an earth-shattering sound of thunder suddenly came, and a large number of black tribulation clouds surged over. When he turned around to look, he saw dense and pitch-black tribulation clouds gathering at a speed visible to the naked eye. In less than half a breath of time, there was already an area of over 100 million kilometers high in the sky that was completely covered in pitch-black tribulation clouds. Yixian was stunned for a moment, then came to a realization. Now that he was a true primordial supreme, there would naturally be a lightning tribulation. This was the tribulation of the desolate supreme that belonged to him. I've been waiting for this day for a long time. Now it's finally here. As he muttered softly, Yixian's figure flashed and disappeared in an instant, rushing out of the cave star. Boom! Rumble! As his figure rushed out of the cave star, the tribulation clouds in the void gathered even faster. In the blink of an eye, they had already enveloped a radius of 1 billion miles. The sudden appearance of this terrifying tribulation cloud had already caused an uproar in the huge forbidden land of Rising Sunday. The green ox, the 6-headed blood flood dragon, Zhao Dong, and the other upper echelons all walked out of seclusion with a look of surprise. The other upper echelons of the magic hall were still in seclusion. In fact, the green ox and the others had already been alarmed. However, by the time they arrived, Yixian had already left. Just as they were about to leave, an earth-shattering thunderclap suddenly came from above their heads, giving everyone a fright. However, when they looked up and saw that the center of all the tribulation clouds was the Devil Master's cave star, they heaved a long sigh of relief, and joy appeared on their faces. Since the tribulation clouds had descended, it was clearly the rhythm of the Devil Master's breakthrough. With his powerful cultivation, how could he be afraid of this small heavenly tribulation? Just as everyone's hearts were surging, a ray of light suddenly rushed out from inside the star and disappeared into the distance in the blink of an eye. It actually left the forbidden land of Rising Sun, and rushed out of the forbidden land. The vast tribulation clouds that originally enveloped the cave star also followed like a shadow and chased after it. The green ox, the 6-headed blood flood dragon, Zhao Dong, and the others turned their heads and exchanged glances. They all understood. The Devil Master did not want to undergo the tribulation in the forbidden land of Rising Sun to avoid being implicated. He immediately rushed out with the other upper echelons of the magic hall and followed behind the vast tribulation clouds, looking into the distance. Chapter 4897. Whoosh! Rumble! A slight sound was heard. Yixian's figure rushed out of the Rising Sun forbidden land. In the blink of an eye, he arrived at a remote void that was nearly 10 billion miles away from the Rising Sun forbidden land. At the same time behind him, the vast tribulation cloud that covered a radius of 1 billion miles followed closely behind. Shocking rumbling sounds were constantly heard. This, after all, it was the lightning tribulation of a desolate supremacy. Its power was not to be underestimated. So the number of tribulation clouds was shocking. Moreover, Yixian was not an ordinary desolate supremacy, so the power of the lightning tribulation was naturally stronger. Although he was completely unafraid of the so-called heavenly tribulation, he had to consider the safety of his subordinates. After rushing out of the rising sun forbidden land, he had successfully lured away the tribulation cloud and was completely relieved. Take everything that followed was just a baptism of a few waves of lightning tribulation to him. In the face of the lightning tribulation that made cultivators pale, he had never taken it seriously. Rumble. Kacha. At this moment, the tribulation cloud that was chasing closely behind him was so dense that it was as black as ink. It covered nearly 10 billion miles of the universe void, which was shocking. Then Yixian's figure came to an abrupt stop in this secluded void. The vast tribulation cloud that had been following behind him once again shrouded the sky above his head. Amidst the earth-shattering rumbling sounds, a purple-gold lightning descended at the first moment. This tribulation lightning was too thick. It was at least 1,000,000 feet long. Looking at its power, even an ordinary star would be split in half. Outside the rising sun forbidden land, a large number of scout fleets from various large and small forces had gathered. They had been quietly lying in wait, but now they were alarmed by this incomparably dense tribulation cloud that shrouded the area. They all became vigilant. After a moment of hesitation, they immediately scattered in all directions, retreating to a distance of more than 2 billion kilometers before stopping. Lightning, the power of the tribulation was too shocking, and its power was monstrous. Only by escaping so far away could they feel a sense of security. They were afraid that if they stayed too close, they would be implicated. Roar! Yixian didn't care about anything that happened in his surroundings, and completely ignored it. Here at this moment, his entire mind was attracted by the first wave of tribulation lightning that descended from the sky. In the past, he would have already summoned the Rai-D seal above his head, using this opportunity to refine the thunder spirit of the Emperor seal, and devour lightning to increase his cultivation. But this time Yixian had no such intention. This was the desolate sovereign lightning retribution that belonged to him. He had to withstand all 3 waves of retribution lightning by himself. This would be the strongest tempering of his body at this moment. He was still in the form of a violent ape. Facing the first wave of tribulation lightning that fell from the sky, he raised his head and let out a violent roar. The aura in his body was completely activated, and his entire person was like the most blazing small star. In the blink of an eye, the thick bolt of purplish gold tribulation lightning struck down. Boundless lightning enveloped Yixian's entire body, causing him to disappear. After a full 3 breaths, everything stopped. The sea of lightning dispersed, and Yixian stood in the void. His aura was stronger, but he was not injured. Instead, his spirit was better. Only the body of the violent ape that was only 3 meters tall seemed to burst out with endless light at this moment, shooting out through the 1.08 billion pores on its body. Crack! In the next moment, an ear-piercing crisp sound rang out, and the tribulation clouds in the sky instantly surged even more violently. After a short breath of time, the second incomparably thick purple-gold lightning bolt had already struck down. This second wave of tribulation lightning was still 3 million meters in diameter, but its color was much denser. It was so purple that it was as if water could drip out of it. The terrifying energy aura caused one's soul to tremble. No. With some hesitation, Yixian's figure turned into a ray of light and shot forward. In the blink of an eye, he had already disappeared into the lightning, and his entire body was submerged. The sea of lightning wreaked havoc, spreading across the vast void within a radius of 10 billion kilometers. This time, when the lightning dissipated after a few breaths, Yixian's figure appeared once again. Although he was still uninjured and his aura was still incomparably strong, his face was somewhat gloomy. The second wave of tribulation lightning looked the same as the first wave, but in fact its power had increased by 3 times. He could be considered to have survived countless lightning tribulations, so he felt uneasy about this strange situation. After all, as the day of the end of the Great Desolation approached, the primeval heaven's eyes' control over the fragments of the void formed after the collapse of the Great Desolation was becoming stronger and stronger. To put it simply, it was actually the control of the heavenly Tao that was becoming more and more obvious. This time, The desolate sovereign tribulation was far from the one that the black-robed holy sage of the tribe had encountered. It was very likely that it was the result of the primeval Heaven's Eye's secret suppression. Dang, however, this kind of suppression was only subconscious and was not deliberately targeted at Yixian. Otherwise, he might not even be able to withstand the second wave of tribulation lightning so easily. However, even if it was only a subconscious suppression, it was still enough to make Yixian feel uneasy. This was because this kind of change meant that a variable had already appeared. Now that the lightning tribulation had not completely dissipated, what would happen next was truly hard to predict. Crack. Just as he was secretly calculating all of this, the third incomparably clear explosion sounded out in the sky above his head. An incomparably thick bolt of purple-gold lightning struck down. Its power was actually several times greater than before. The diameter of the lightning tribulation had reached 3 million feet. Although the diameter had only increased by 3 times, the power was definitely not as simple as 3 times. According to Yixian's estimation, the power of this wave of lightning tribulation was probably more than 9 times that of the first wave of lightning tribulation. Roar! A cold glint flashed across the eyes of the violent ape. At the same time it raised its head and roared furiously. Its body was like a shooting star that shot backwards. In an instant it shot towards the third frightening lightning bolt that was descending from above. Crack! Rumble! In an instant the two collided, and an incomparably clear tearing sound rang out. Yixian's entire body was completely enveloped, and the boundless purple-gold sea of lightning was more than 10 billion kilometers in size. Even the void was shattering inch by inch, and then it quickly healed. It was clear that the circulation of the laws of this world had strengthened by a lot. It seemed to vaguely verify Yixian's guess. This scene was too shocking. The scout fleets of the various great powers, which had already retreated more than 2 billion kilometers away, immediately moved after a short moment of shock. They once again retreated in a hurry, because the third wave of tribulation lightning had already struck down, but the dense tribulation clouds that enveloped the sky did not disperse. This was clearly the rhythm of the fourth wave of lightning tribulation. Since there was a fourth wave, there was a high possibility that there would be a fifth wave. No one dared to guarantee how many more waves there would be. For the sake of safety, it was best to retreat further, however. If the lightning tribulation really came wave after wave, then the lightning sea would wreak havoc in a wider and wider area. If they were not careful and were caught in the crossfire, then it would be too late for regrets. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 4898. Typically, there were only 3 waves of lightning tribulations for mighty figures of the primordial era and supremes of the primordial era. Only when one stepped into the true heavenly Tao realm would the lightning tribulation be different. It was either 1 or 9. 9 if it was Tao, there was a chance of successfully surviving it. But if it was just 1 bolt, it was basically certain death. Now, Yixian had yet to attempt to break through to the true heavenly Tao realm. He was only transcending the desolate supremacy lightning tribulation. However, after the third wave of lightning tribulation struck down, the dense tribulation cloud above his head did not disperse. When this scene entered his eyes, his heart stirred. He already had a guess. No, the third bolt of lightning had already struck down. Its might was at least 9 times that of the first bolt. Even he had to treat it with caution. Therefore, he had no time to care about it. He temporarily threw the guess in his heart to the back of his mind. The third bolt of lightning enveloped an area of more than 5 billion kilometers. The scene was extremely shocking. After about half a minute, the boundless sea of lightning dissipated, revealing Yixian's figure. If today, he was in the form of a raging ape. He did not have a robe on him, only a leather skirt around his waist. It was also transformed from the energy in his body and was one with him. Therefore, no matter how powerful the lightning was, it was impossible for his robe to tear. After this wave of lightning tribulation, Yixian's aura remained the same. It was powerful and tyrannical, but his expression was even gloomier than when he transcended the second wave of lightning tribulation. It was as though water could drip out of it. The power of the third wave of lightning tribulation was indeed extremely powerful. It was 9 times that of the first wave and 3 times that of the second wave. With every wave of lightning tribulation, the power would increase by 3 times. If there were really 9 waves of lightning tribulation, even he would be severely injured. Boom! Rumble! Gotcha! Just as he was feeling worried, an earth-shattering thunderous roar came from the void above his head. There was also the crisp sound of tearing silk. Looking up, a purplish-gold lightning bolt that was 9 million feet in diameter was smashing down from the sky with an aura that could destroy the world. First, the third wave of tribulation lightning from before was already 10 million meters in diameter. Now, the fourth wave of tribulation lightning had actually reached 9 million meters in diameter. It had increased explosively by 3 times, and its might would probably increase by at least another 3 times or even more. Look! Upon seeing this, Yixian's heart sank. Okay, as this bolt of lightning struck down, the tribulation clouds that enveloped an area of close to 10 billion kilometers in radius instantly dissipated. It could be seen that all the power in the tribulation cloud was gathered in this bolt of tribulation lightning. Its power was so strong that it caused one to tremble. It surpassed any of the lightning tribulations that Yixian had experienced in the past, and it couldn't even be compared to it. It emitted an endless aura of destruction, however. Yixian was still fearless. He was now a true primordial sovereign, and his physical body had always been strong. Even if it was a terrifying tribulation lightning bolt with a diameter of 90 million meters, to him, it was only a tempering of his physical body. If there were 9 bolts of lightning this time, and each one was several times stronger than the last, then even Yixian would find it difficult to withstand the final 8 and 9 bolts of lightning. But now that it was over with just 4 bolts, he didn't feel any pressure at all. After enduring this wave of lightning tribulation, he would become a true primordial sovereign. There are clearly only 3 waves of lightning tribulation, but today there is a 4th wave. This is clearly the result of the heavenly Daozai cheating. I will take care of this matter for you, and in the future, there will be a time to settle this. As he muttered to himself, a cold light flashed across Yixian's eyes. He curled his lips, and with a flash of his body, he charged straight towards the terrifying tribulation clouds that enveloped the endless void above his head. Screech! The next moment, under the agitation of his emotions, a long roar came out of the mouth of the violent ape. He did not dodge, but instead, his body rushed out amidst the violent roar. In the blink of an eye, he entered the tribulation lightning and was completely submerged. Rumble! The following scene was too shocking. Within the extremely vast violet gold tribulation cloud, numerous terrifying rumbling and explosions resounded incessantly from the beginning until now. The lightning bolt with a diameter of 90 million meters exploded, and the vast void of billions of miles was enveloped by the sea of purple gold lightning. The entire void was trembling slightly, constantly shattering and rapidly healing, as if it could collapse at any time. Although it was just a bolt of lightning, but this time it wreaked havoc for dozens of breaths. Then, the vast sea of lightning that enveloped more than 10 billion miles of void completely disappeared. The vast void was thus cleared. Whoosh! As the entire sea of lightning disappeared, a faint sound of breaking through the air could be heard. Next, in an instant, the violent ape walked out of the void high in the sky. There was not a single wound on his treasure body. It was shining brightly, and it emitted an endless aura of an eternity lord, spreading in all directions. At this moment, the cultivation aura that had been hidden in his body was also released due to the dissipation of the lightning tribulation. He was a first-order supreme primordial, but compared to an ordinary first-order desolate venerable, he was much stronger. However, a first-order desolate venerable was a first-order desolate venerable. No matter how strong he was, he could not be compared to a ninth-order desolate venerable. The gap between the two was too great, and the difference in strength was too great. Before this, Yixian's 3 Blood Sea clones had always been at the late stage of the desolate sovereign realm. Not long ago, when he went to the Tianji clan, the 3 Blood Sea clones were even at the peak of the 9th stage of the supreme ancient desolate realm. They were peak desolate venerables, or half-step heavenly Tao. Because of this, when he suddenly underwent a tribulation this time, other than Green Ox and a few other existences who knew about Yixian's foundation and understood the truth, even most of the upper echelons in the magic hall thought that he was about to undergo a heavenly Tao tribulation, and that he was about to break through to the true heavenly Tao realm. More than half of the upper echelons in the camp were already like this. Needless to say, the outside world was even more so. Everyone thought that Yixian was undergoing a heavenly Tao tribulation, but they never thought that he was actually undergoing a desolate venerable tribulation. Before this, because of the suppression of the lightning tribulation, Yixian's cultivation aura did not spread out, so no one sensed it. For example, now, as the aura of a first-level desolate venerable spread out clearly from his body, all the experts who didn't know the truth were stunned for a moment before their bodies shook violently. Their expressions changed drastically as they gasped and exclaimed in horror. Demon Lord's cultivation aura. Did I see wrongly? He's actually only a first-order desolate venerable? He's only undergoing a desolate venerable tribulation? That should be right. After all, there are only 4 lightning tribulations, not 9. This is definitely not a heavenly Tao lightning tribulation. Doesn't that mean that Demon Lord's previous cultivation strength was only at the primordial great figure realm? What a terrifying bloodline ability. It can actually raise one's cultivation by an entire realm? It's simply heaven-defying. First-order desolate venerable. After the Magic Hall Master underwent the lightning tribulation, his cultivation strength was only at the first-order desolate venerable realm. Heavens, he was only at the great figure realm previously, but he stirred up a void. Now that he has broken through again, and it's a leap in strength, wouldn't he be even more powerful? Such a monstrous talent is simply outrageous. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile reading website Chapter 4899. The lightning tribulation was over, and the thick tribulation clouds that enveloped billions of kilometers had dissipated. The cosmic void outside the forbidden land of the rising sun had regained its previous tranquility, however. In the scout fleets of various factions that were lying dormant in the distant void, the hearts of all the experts were surging like never before. This time they had unwittingly discovered a major shocking secret. The Magic Hall's master Yixian was not a true primordial supreme. His desolate supremacy cultivation level was forcefully raised through some heaven-defying bloodline mystic technique. All this while, he had only been a mighty figure of the primordial era. Only now did he welcome his own desolate supremacy tribulation. This news would soon spread out, and it was destined to shock this vast and boundless untainted land fragment void. First, previously, when he was still a mighty figure of the primordial era, Yixian had already reached the terrifying cultivation level of a primordial supreme at the 9th stage when he used that heaven-defying mystic technique. But now, his cultivation level had once again broken through, crossing a large realm and becoming a true first-stage desolate supremacy. Would his true combat strength reach the level of a heavenly Tao realm expert? Although it was uncertain, there was at least a certain possibility. While furthermore, he had never broken through before. This time he had suddenly decided to break through after attacking the Heaven's Legacy race and accidentally causing the Patriarch of the Heaven's Legacy race to use the strength of the entire Heaven's Legacy race to fuse into a Heaven's Legacy beast with a true Heavenly Tao realm cultivation level. Just based on this point, not only was there a possibility that his true combat strength would reach the first stage Heavenly Tao realm after breaking through, it was also not small. With this fear and shock, the various large faction scout fleets that were lying dormant in the distant void quickly and silently retreated. Slightly as they left and returned to their respective races, they spread the news of what had happened outside the forbidden land of the rising sun. This primordial world fragment would once again welcome a shocking earthquake. Fear perhaps even the Patriarch of the Heaven's Legacy race who had just fused into a Heaven's Legacy beast with the strength of the entire race, would be shocked and bewildered. Yixian did not care about any of this. After the desolate sovereign lightning tribulation ended, his figure flashed and he immediately returned to the cave-dwelling star in the rising sun forbidden land. He immediately entered seclusion. After all, he had just officially broken through to the next realm. Furthermore, after experiencing the baptism of the terrifying desolate supremacy tribulation, his body was even stronger and his spirit was more focused. Naturally, he needed to go into seclusion to stabilize everything. While with his return, the Green Ox and the other higher-ups of the Magic Hall, who had followed him to the forbidden land of rising sun to watch from afar, also returned. However, they did not disperse. Instead, they gathered outside Yixian's abode star. Aside from them, all of the other higher-ups of the Magic Hall who were in seclusion also gathered here after receiving the news of their breakthroughs. This time he spent a whole 7 days in seclusion. 7 days later, A beam of light shot out from Yixian's abode star and stopped abruptly in the void outside the atmosphere. It was none other than Yixian at this moment. He was no longer in his ape form. Instead, he was using his own appearance. He was the human form of the Sky River Star Lord Yixian. This time, the desolate sovereign tribulation had caused his true cultivation to be exposed. Since that was the case, Yixian didn't care. He might as well officially reveal his true identity in front of all the upper echelons of the Demon Palace. Of course, the news that the master of the Magic Hall was Yixian had already been spread by the patriarch of the Heaven's Legacy race. The higher-ups of the Magic Hall, who had been kept in the dark, were all bewildered, except for the Green Ox and a few others who knew. But none of them dared to take the initiative to ask. Here at this moment, when they saw Yixian in the appearance of the Sky River Star Lord, everyone's eyes lit up. Their faces were filled with realization in their sight. There were the six-headed blood dragon, Zhao Dong, Qian Nan, Sun Shi, Li Bei, Elder Sangji, and the other powerful beings of the remnant people, Green Ox, Yu Linglong, Long Ao, Gong Jun, Howling Moon Mastiff, Three-Clawed Dragon, Long Shantang, Blood Dragon Ancestor, Green Rock Ancestor, and the titled emperors of the Blood Dragon, Green Rock, and Battle Lion clans. Therefore, the higher-ups of the 6 armies of the Magic Hall were all here. For example, the Sangji remnant tribe of the remnant people, the more than 20 titled Undying Elders of the Rising Sun Forbidden Land, the Three-Clawed Dragon, Long Shantang, and the other representatives of the nomadic army. Finally, there were more than 200 titled emperors in the army of the Blood Dragon, Green Rock, and Battle Lion clans, including 9 powerful beings of the primordial era from these 3 clans. There were also the 3 powerful beings of the Remnant People Alliance and the Black-Robed Desolate Supremacy. Of course, the primordial porcupine, the primordial hairy tortoise, and the higher-ups of the 10,000 evil army were all gathered here. Even more, there were the commander of the Heavenly River Army, Old Devil Mosquito Butcher, Naples Devil King Mo Tian Demon King Imperial Uncle, Dark Turtle Clan Leader Mingjiu, Mad Mosquito Emperor, Old Man Xinyuan, Old Man Duanmu, Abyss Bodhi, and other small sects and clans. A total of over 1,000 figures were all gathered here. Even Yixian hadn't seen everyone gathered together like this for a long time. At this moment, as he appeared, his line of sight swept over them one by one. His face immediately revealed a gratified expression. During this period of time, he had been in seclusion and crazily improved his cultivation level. All of the higher-ups of the Magic Hall had greatly improved their cultivation level. Now they were all Universe Knights and above. Just as the rumors say, Yixian. After looking around at the upper echelons of the Demon Palace, a smile appeared on Yixian's face as he continued. Amongst all of you here many years ago, you have all come into contact with me. In fact, it's not just once, and some of you even have a good relationship with me. The reason why I became the master of the Magic Hall was before I reunited with all of you. I wasn't against you. Later on, I just went with the flow. I didn't mean to hide anything. It wasn't easy for us to come together. Since we have said it out loud, I should express my stance. At this point, Yixian seemed to have thought of something and changed the topic. Besides, my cultivation level did reach level 9 Desolate Supremacy because of some secret technique. Now that I've consumed a level 29 Desolate Supremacy treasure pill, I've successfully entered the Desolate Supremacy realm. However, the void space of this fragment of the universe seems to be suppressed by the green eye of the Heavenly Tao. That heaven-defying secret technique is only effective for those below the Heavenly Tao realm. In order to verify this, I will immediately rush to the primordial chaos void and use the secret technique there to see if I can successfully enter the Heavenly Tao realm. Although this is a risky move that might attract the attention of the green eye of the Heavenly Tao, it has to be done. During this period of time, the subordinates of the Magic Hall are not to leave the Forbidden Land of Rising Sun, unless absolutely necessary. Although I'm leaving, the 4 Heavenly Kings will stay behind and watch over my cave abode star. With these 4 half-step Heavenly Tao realm existences watching over it, there should be no problems. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile reading website